What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Piston Head Podcast. On this week's episode, we have Josiah Fallaise on from FDF Performance. FDF is an incredible company when it comes to grip kits and angle kits and just drifting parts in general. They're making leaps and bounds in that market. I've known Josiah for a couple of years now, and I've had the pleasure of kind of seeing his company grow from being just in a little shop to now this incredible. Just incredible company. So in this podcast, we talk about business, we talk about drifting, talk about kind of our ideologies when it comes to drifting and our thoughts around a lot of the different stuff. We also get really, really nerdy into some angle stuff. It's a really cool episode. It's incredibly long. So please just enjoy this. This was just an awesome chat, and I can't wait to have him back on. And I'm recording there, so that's good. So cool. I'll switch over to live here in 3, 2, 1, and we'll just make sure. Sweet. All right, just say a couple words and make sure your audio is good.
Hello.
There we go. That's better.
Good to go?
I think so. You're a little quieter than I am, but that's not surprising. I'm kind of a loud guy. It's kind of what I'm known for.
Turn it up.
No, we're good. I think we're good.
Okay.
Cool. So what's going on? How's life? How's quarantine treating you? Or while we're kind of coming out of it now, it's how's life? Let's not even talk about that bullshit.
Well, you know what? Life's been good. I've been moving shops. I've been moving houses. I've got kids going crazy. So business is booming. Employees, I mean, you can consider them kids as well.
They are kids for sure. I know most of your staff. They're kids.
Yeah. The drama and controlling that is a task on its own, and then you come home and you got to deal with the similar problems.
Right. Hey, we forgot. We totally forgot. Sorry to interrupt. Do you want to jump on Instagram?
Yeah, if you can just call.
I will get that going. Whoa, hang on. Live. Let's go Instagram Live. And I think I have to invite you if I'm not mistaken. Who am I inviting? Is it you or is it
FDF?
FDF
will be the go-to for this one.
Invite. Should be getting a notification.
That should work.
Why is that? Oh, I'll have to turn down my volume just so it doesn't double feed.
Same. Yeah.
Why is YouTube saying that stream finished? Oh, lovely. Oh, man, I love YouTube sometimes. That stream led. Oh, cool. Well, speaking of fun, crazy shit, give me 1 sec here, because we may have to restart really quick because I think it's ended the actual live stream.
Yeah, do what you gotta do.
All right, give me 1 sec. Oh man, okay. We'll keep this end going, but I'm gonna have to redo it. Fuck. Gotta love. Everything's still set up, so that's good.
Is it double feeding a bit too, audio wise? Sounds like a little bit.
Through Instagram, it might, just because we're.
Can't turn the volume completely off.
Mine's way down, so I can't. Mine's far enough away that I don't know if I can hear you. Fuck tires, am I right? We should be good now, I think. AutoStart is disabled for your broadcast. Open YouTube Studio. Gotta love this stuff.
Yeah, man, you're the master.
I would not go that far. There are definitely people who are much better than I am at this kind of thing. But hopefully everybody else is able to hear all right. Oh, it's because I'm on the wrong channel. Cool. Oh, man. Anyways, if you want to, actually, should be good to go. Sorry for everybody. Well, if you want to entertain people on Instagram, go for it.
Sure, yeah. I already see a couple comments. Ask away, whatever you'd like. Volume sounds good. Perfect.
Oh man.
Yeah, this is a podcast that we're doing. If you guys want to ask questions on the Instagram live, that's fine. But
Yeah, we'll
we're
try it.
also
We'll
on a
definitely try and get to them. All right. Hopefully this is the last one. Enable auto startup.
have to call
This
notice.
should be the
So,
last one. Yeah, so it should be good to go now. I don't know
okay.
why it just decided to crash while I was running all the demo stuff. So gotta love that. Why isn't this working now? Connecting to streaming software. I was like, oh, I'll check my phone and see if it's running on my phone, and then realize it's on Instagram right now. So
Podcast is focused on the Pistonhead podcast site. Yes, correct.
oh, it
If you
says
want
we're
to tune in
live.
there, we will also be saving it and posting it on probably on my YouTube channel. And
All right.
good to go.
Okay. I think we're good to go. It looks like we're good to go.
Sweet.
All right. Wow. Sorry, guys. I apologize. This is if anybody here has ever been on a podcast or ever done a podcast, it is just a constant uphill battle. So yeah,
Are you able
appreciate
to
everybody
see the
tuning in.
Instagram comments as well?
I can, yeah, I can see all of them right now. I don't know how big they are. There we go. I made them a little bit bigger.
Here you go.
So yeah, it should be live on Twitch for anybody else that's wondering. Pistonhead Productions. So if you guys are Twitch people, go ahead and jump over there. So
Somebody said your link didn't work in the comments.
yeah, I think it's because we had to refresh it to this new stream.
Gotcha.
It's up and running now. If you want to take a second and relink it, go for it. It doesn't matter to me. I can explain to these fine people what's going on. But yeah, so my name is Jacob. I'm with the Pistonhead podcast. Yeah, I've had a YouTube channel with me and a couple of buddies for a long time now, just car related stuff, all drifting related. I actually work for Riley Sexsmith of Pro 2. I've done work with a bunch of other drivers. I work with a couple of different automotive brands as well. So yeah, that's kind of the rundown on me. If you guys enjoy podcasts, make sure to go back and look at our back catalog. We just finished one with Kevin Wells. We did another one with Ryan Sage, talking about all of the prospect stuff, all the changes on that end of things. We've done podcasts with Matt Farah, Matt Field, speaking of the Matts. And then we've done other smaller stuff with smaller creators. We've had guys on from like Haltech, ECU Master. So yeah, make sure to check it out. I think it's available on iTunes, basically anywhere you find podcasts now. I know we're on Spotify, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's excellent. I'm going to introduce myself, mine as well. I mean, on Instagram, it's pretty obvious, but
yeah, you guys should
my
know
name is Josiah Fallaise. I'm the owner of FDF Race Shop, and I design angle kits. I build suspension components, and I drift myself. We have lots of different cars at the shop that I'm constantly working on and developing, and we can go on and talk about all that stuff as well. And what is the next thing that's happening? We've done a lot of expansions in the last couple months, even through the COVID year. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting 2021. It's been a great start so far. I can see some of the questions coming in already. The idea for me doing Pro 2 was that I had already actually paid for the full season last year early, because the goal was I built a car. The car was completely done. It was ready to go. And obviously COVID hit. So the problem with COVID was, being in Canada, when you go across the border, there is a 2-week mandatory quarantine when you come back. So with that being the main issue for me, I have 2 kids. I have them on my own, so there's not really an option for me to do that. Plus, I can't run a business from home. So it kind of really it put me out of the realm of possibilities to go. But actually, I was on the last flight that was allowed out of Canada, and I went to Florida anyways. And I kid you not, my parents were on a flight 3 hours later, and they got taken off the plane. They did not take off 3 hours after I had just taken off. So I went to Florida for 3 days. The goal there was to collaborate with my Drift HQ team, who was going to be one of my main sponsors for last year. And they sell a ton of our products. We work together on a lot of things. So I went there to just drift with them for a few days. So I ended up doing that, and I remember the big joke was like somebody sneezed from across the track, and it
Oh
was like
Jesus.
everyone's yelling, "Oh, COVID! Like you got COVID!" And it was a joke at the time. Like this was in it was a year ago this month. It was in February. So when we were there, it was just a big joke. Obviously, none of us knew what what it would have entailed in hindsight, looking at it a year later. But yeah, it shot the whole season. So we ended up running our own event late last year because we were desperate for some competition, and I think everybody was. And the problem is when you get into uh, like you're like, wow, I wish someone would just like, I wish we could just compete, and I wish someone would do it. When you really get down to it, you're not gonna, it's not gonna happen unless you do it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I think we've kind of just established that in Ontario for some reason, with everything else going down, somebody just had to do it, and it wasn't going to be anyone else except for us. Like if we wanted to drift, we got to make it happen. If we want to compete, we got to make it happen. So I'm okay with that role. Like it was fine. It was a lot of work, but like I mean, we threw an amazing event for being so last minute in Canada. I don't think you were there actually,
No, I wasn't.
but I know
Um,
you wanted. I know we talked about it quite a bit,
we definitely had a
collaborating.
lot of talks about setting up, the live streams and stuff.
Yeah,
I
which
think
didn't happen, but
I was gonna say, I think your mic is rubbing. I think it's picking up your mic that's on your cheek there. It's just
this
rubbing
one.
against the cord. That's all. There you go. Anyways, it's actually funny you mentioned that. Like, if you don't have it, the only way to fix it is basically to do it yourself. Because that's essentially what you did with the ankle kids, right? Like, obviously, I mean, the name's going to come up anyways, but like WiseFab being the big guys on the street, and you saw a need and a want from all these different drivers and different competitors being like, okay, this shit's incredibly expensive. It's breaking constantly. Like, even without my connection to you, I've been pretty outspoken about that company in a couple of ways because I saw some things happen on track that were directly related to fatigue failure of ankle kids, where guys were hitting the wall and they're like, "Oh, this is weird. They just hit the wall." And I'm like, "Well, if you watch the video, his control arm broke before he hit the wall." I'm like, "Well, that shouldn't be happening, right?" And that to me was a fatigue failure in a part, which obviously you saw an opening in the same kind of thing where you knew that there was this want and this need for something. The event being the example before, but the ankle kit being the main thing. And then you jumped on it and was like, okay, well, this is the thing that I'm doing now. This is something that I want and I see an opening for. And I mean, business wise, that is, if you want a successful business, is what you do. You find a problem people have and you find a way to solve it.
sure, there was definitely a pretty much a last minute entry into what I feel like is there. I mean, there's four major brands that are competing for this space in the drift community, and I'm still at the earliest and the youngest company of the four. Like if you want to name them, it's PBM, WiseFab, GK Tech, and FDF. If you're going to recommend anything, those are
Mhm.
could be called the household names, if you will. Specifically speaking about like Nissan chassis, because that's all GK Tech does. But basically, I have I have a very high respect for every company that's making parts. The development process that I go through, I wouldn't say anybody else goes through it because I am the only one that does any of this design work. Where the other the other brands may have teams or they may outsource or they may do things overseas. Whatever they do, it's it's tough, man. Like you try to cover all your bases and you learn from your mistakes. Like if you want to reference that for any basically anything at all, you can use that as a good lesson. You're going to learn from your mistakes. You will make mistakes. Mistakes
Mhm.
will be made. So it's a matter of like looking at a company and how they adapt constantly. Like are companies going to be selling something that they know isn't working properly? Like for example, I saw a pretty funny video where a guy bought a flexible lamp, and the reason why you buy a flexible lamp is so that you can manipulate the light, move it around. right? That's your
Yeah.
basic, like it's got one use. You had a straight lamp and now you want a flexible lamp.
Yeah.
And the only thing it had to do was hold up the light,
Its own
and so
weight.
you can move it around, which out of the box it could not do. So this is where you're like, okay, so I bought this light for one reason and one job, and it couldn't do the one job. Does the light turn on? Yes. That's not why I bought it though. So
That's
when you
crazy.
get so that's where you get your difference between the companies, and basically the companies that adapted and changed are the ones that are still around, because they had to go through all of this, correct what they needed to, and adapt. And some of them took a very long time to adapt. Some of them make stuff overseas so that they had a production run of 500 units, and they were going to make the change after 500 units were sold. And
Which is a
just as
problem.
an example, that's a big problem for sure.
Yeah.
It's a huge problem. So luckily, we make everything start to finish in house. So if we needed to make updates, changes, improvements, whatever it is, generally you're going to see it within, like, instantly. As soon as a problem arises, you're going to see a change made right away. And this is how we grew, and grew quickly, because obviously before we were known for anything, I had these products on my own car.
Mhm.
My S13 that I had for 7 years. I sold it 2 years ago, so it would have been 9 now. But so 7 years ago, I was like, I don't have any money, going to school, coming out of high school, going to college. Um, I would like to get more steering angle. I don't have any money to buy anything, but I'm in school for engineering, so like, let's cook something up. Like, I
Yeah.
know what's going on. So basically, I just started modifying parts, and I slowly bought different pieces of equipment. And I mean, you did a tour or a shop
Way
tour through
back in the
our,
day.
like, 2 or 3 years ago. And so even before that is when I would have been starting out, just making stuff for people. So then I would post pictures on Instagram and stuff. And I had a couple thousand followers, maybe. I was a really good welder, so I know a lot of people followed me for that. But once I started getting into, like, look at how much angle my car gets, and look at how well it seems to perform, whether that was driver or mechanical advantage, I cannot say. It just, because it depends, right? Like, if drifting's one of those things where if you have a reasonable amount of coordination and enough seat time, you just will be good at it. It's one of those things. It's like, you've got to have the basics of, like, human coordination requirements, and then if you have those, you just need a bunch of seat time.
Yeah.
So, and then sometimes people don't have the minimum requirements, but maybe they compensated with money, like finances, and they got 2, 3, 4 times as much seat time. So then it equals out, right? So
Yeah. Money can fix a lot of problems. That's for sure. Money can
it
fix seat
can,
time. It can.
for sure. Like, if I mean, it would fall into any category that has to do with any type of sport ever. Like, you, if you have the time, even if you don't have the skill, you will get the experience. So there's three different things basically, and experience can trump skill, because raw talent is a diamond in the rough, and
Mhm.
if you do not refine it, it is just a clump of rocks with maybe a nice diamond inside. But if you never get it out, then it's not worth anything. So you're right, like, the skill factor and everything plays in. But anyways, that's kind of off topic with where
No,
I with,
it definitely fits into it because it fits into it fits also into building of the products, right? Like you need to have some raw skill, and then that raw skill then can create money, which can then help create more products because you can buy more things. Like it's a cycle. Wherever you come in the cycle is up to you. Some people come in with no skill, but they have money. So they can develop that skill and they can get that equipment faster. Okay, look at great example. Look at the Sorensens. That's a family with money. There is no I I for anybody who's new to this, I have no problems calling things out the way it is, because that is a family with money. Take it or leave it. Anybody else in that position, we'd be doing the exact same fucking thing. So
yeah,
also, you're allowed to
100%.
swear on this. So that's somebody who started off at the money tier, and they use that money to then buy products and buy seat time. First, they bought the products so that they can get the seat time. And then that built their skill, which will then hopefully one day increase money. And then the cycle continues to go. If at any point in time one of those things is removed, that's when it stops. That's when you stop progressing. So, it goes back to you building this stuff. You had the skill, you then use that skill to then start to make money, which then got more products, right? Which got more equipment to then continue to increase your skill. Because when I was first there, you were doing mostly roll cages and like general fab work. Your big seller at that point in time was hood vents. And then you and I
Yeah.
were talking, and I believe you hadn't officially launched the Mantis kit yet, but it was something you had built, and you were showing me the designs for it. You were walking me through it, and you're like, "This is my next thing." I'm like, "Holy shit, this is a bold move. Like, you're going after a gigantic company by doing something like this." But then again, that you started to sell those. It became big locally. Like everybody at Top Drift, it was the talk. Okay, next kit I'm buying is an FDF, and then I don't know where it spread from there when it got into the US market, who you got in the hands to. Like I remember it getting to Taylor Ray, that being pretty big. I'm sure there's other people that I don't know about or other big YouTubers, but like that then started to take off there. And then the next big milestone that I remember was Drift HQ. And that's when I went, oh shit, like this is it. Like this isn't just a small thing anymore. Like this is going to go big quick. I'm sure I would hope you would know the other milestones in between or other things, but
Yeah, of course.
that's
Yeah.
my recollection of the timeline. I try
Yeah,
not
like
to stalk you too much. So
if I went into the US market debut, it would have actually been basically in order to make a sale when you're not well known, you got to do a lot of talking. You got to do a lot of convincing. You got to do a lot of basically selling it for zero profit, or you're actually paying a little bit. So I'm selling these angle kits to guys to test out basically for 500, $600, and
right.
that's what it's costing me in materials alone to build it.
And that's not even
So
your time, right?
that is not my time. So
Yeah.
I mean, luckily when I first started, I was working full time, uh, designing production machines basically to make blister packs, to be specific. And on my weekends, this is what I was doing. So I'm like, yeah, I got to get this kit into other people's hands. I got to get that unbiased opinion out there, and I got to get people talking about how well it works, how different it is. Like we literally came up with structural designs for the arms that were aesthetically pleasing, but like did the job, worked well, and were relatively easy to fabricate. Like you can get pretty crazy, or you can get super simple. Like you can cut it out of a thick piece of steel, or you can do something that's welded together, or you can do a fully billet CNC machine part. And we've
Yeah.
entertained each level of manufacturing and in production in all of those avenues, where we are learning what benefits come from what, and then aesthetically, how do we like it? I mean, aesthetically is like, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's literally like people are buying a product based on a picture. So like you gotta do something with it. Um, so there's aesthetically, and then when you get into uh, I guess I'm off topic again with how I started, but basically
Just
I had
keep
to get
going.
these kits. I had to get these kits into people's hands in the U.S. market for as cheap as possible, and I had to do a lot of talking to get it there. So these guys that were getting it, I actually ended up becoming pretty good friends with, that have been running the kits for 4. It depends on the chassis, because the
Mhm.
chassis got in, like S chassis was in quite a while ago. Like I was modifying knuckles for S chassis like 7, 8 years ago.
Mhm.
So I got S chassis knuckles into the US quite a bit earlier. I've done hundreds of S chassis knuckles, jigged it, and the big seller for us was that I was modifying the knuckles using a CNC designed piece that I would basically cut the knuckle up with a jig. I would then add this water jet cut piece of high strength steel in between all of my cut bits, and then I would weld it in my jig that I created to have the perfect roll center, in my opinion, the perfect acronym, the perfect geometry, corrected bump steer, and all that. And we even added changed the trail amounts in reference. Like basically, these guys were using these on stock control arms still, so we were changing it relative to what the setup was going to be, but it was a big deal. And this was like 5 to 7 years ago that I was doing this, and
Jesus.
everyone else was just cutting and moving the tie rod. So
Yeah.
you cut and move the tie rod, you do one thing, you get more angle. And what does it do to your accurate? Nobody knows. Nobody's seen it. It's just like mine gets more steering angle, I'm happy. And it's like, oh, but you're bending a tie rod every other corner that you drive on. So it's like you did something wrong, but who cared? They wouldn't hold any blame to them because there were so many people modifying knuckles and extending control arms. Like it was like probably 10 people just from Toronto to Ottawa, which is like a 4-hour circle around me. If I was doing it for $200, someone else could do it for 175 or whatever it was. So like when that's like where it all started, but like I was doing it on my own time. I didn't have to pay anybody. So like $200 to modify knuckles, like you're laughing.
Yeah.
It took you 3 hours. There's no material costs. The welder's already there. The gas, you're barely using anything from it. So like as a guy working on weekends, you start doing 5 knuckles a weekend. Like you're bringing in $1,000 a weekend. So
Yeah.
what I did with
You're
this
making
was,
real money.
so then what I did with this was, um, I basically would spend that money and buy a lathe. Then I would buy a vertical mill, and then I would upgrade my welder. And I spent a couple of years doing this while working full time. So then when I did finally transition to being full time at my small little shop that you would have seen, I
Mhm.
had all this equipment that I had acquired through working on weekends. And to me, it never really seemed like I was breaking my back or doing anything crazy. Like I enjoyed doing all of this stuff. So the beginning really wasn't like this crazy journey. The journey begins when you start getting employees, you start um, selling to consume, like you start offering. We have 420 products on our website. This is a we're in a consumer market where I got to deal with thousands of customers now. Like this is where the journey begins and the challenges start happening. Like you deal with the general public, 95% of people are just like you and I, reasonable, understanding, whatever. Like we're like if I took a picture of our orders today for a customer that was like I chat with pretty much everybody. If you send me a message or hit us up by email, we usually check our emails every day. If we don't, that's because we're just crazy busy. So basically, this guy was like, he ordered his kit early February. We're coming up on the 3 week mark, which is generally when we like to push everything out. Like if it's at the 3 weeks, like we're hustling on that one. And it's pretty common, unfortunately. Like we got 9 people working for me now, and it still takes 2 to 3 weeks to get these kits out. Like start to finish. Like the process of actually doing every single piece in house is, when you look at any angle kit, you're looking at like 90 pieces, like if you include washers, nuts, bolts, whatever. Like
Yeah.
you're looking at a lot, and all of this is in an assembly package or a sheet that an assembler, like one of the 3 guys that we have assembling these kits, when they're finished welding, powder coating, machining, whatever, like it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And when you're relying, like we try not to rely on people too much, but we do rely on companies like Fastenal for hardware and bearings and any other things like that. There's companies that we deal with for our high-end Heim joints. And when you got everything else done that we build in house, and then you're waiting on one aspect or one part of the kit, like each kit uses between 6 and 10 Heim joints. Like there's nothing you can do. We don't have them. We
Yeah.
can't make them.
No,
Like
no. One
a
day.
bearing, a chromoly bearing is something that to manufacture would be outside the realm of, basically the manufacturers of these Heim joints. That's all they make.
Yeah.
They don't make anything else because they have massive machines designated to form threading, hardening, and like basically assembling these very precise pieces of equipment of part that millions of people rely on, or they sell millions of these a year, and they're used in all kinds of applications. So they wouldn't do anything other than make Heim joints, and that's what we need. Because if I got all that equipment, I'd be $1 million, and I'm only making one part of the kit out of 90 pieces. So
Yeah.
that doesn't work. So that's fine. Like if there's every company relies on somebody else regardless, and we probably do the most in-house manufacturing out of these four companies if they're going to be compared. Obviously, there's others, but um, like I said, we're still on the lower end, but we do everything. We have our water jet machine running. I wish it was running 24/7, but these guys got to sleep, so it's not. It's running like 10 hours a day. Let's say everyone kind of takes turns working a bit later than the one guy that we have working on the machine. I keep asking him to work later and stay more, and everyone's got to have a life. So
Well, there's a point of diminishing returns too, where like you can only get staff to go so far, right? Like that's the thing too, especially when you're talking about something that realistically people are putting their life, they're trusting their lives with your product, because at the speeds that drift cars are at the horsepower and the grip levels that we're at, um, if that kit fails, you can kill somebody. At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. So, that's got to weigh pretty heavily too. When you're like, I can't push these guys. I can only push these guys so hard because we're going to start losing quality. And it's not like this flexible light we talked about earlier. Because if that flexible light goes, like nobody dies. If your kit goes, there's a huge problem. So that I think it's it's tough. It's definitely tough whenever you're dealing with the general public, especially people who don't understand the product that you're selling or the manufacturing process. So I was once told that like 1% of your clients cause 95% of the headaches, and that's definitely the case in my experience.
that's
Um,
accurate. Yeah.
but yeah, it's tough. It's definitely tough. What at what point, like company wise, do you just go, okay, we need to get a second shift going, or we need to start running more guys, or like obviously you just expanded to a new shop, so that's a big step. That means that you have the facility to start hopefully staffing more, but like do you have a goal in mind of like, okay, we're going to hit x amount in sales, and you don't have to say how much, or I want product once productivity slips past 3 weeks regularly, now we need to bring in more people. I'm just curious if you have like a deadline or a goal in mind for that.
Sure. Basically, 3 weeks is the deadline. So we've been hovering right around the 2 to 3 week mark, and then if it gets pushed beyond that, it usually isn't because we didn't make the part. It's because we're missing a part. So it's kind of something that we're well under control of. And a huge issue that we fixed just in the last couple of months was powder coating. We were outsourcing powder coating, and I don't know if you can imagine, like we were spending around $7,000 a month to powder coat our parts. And bringing this, it also took weeks. Like we would take a skid of parts every other day to this company.
Wow.
And at times we wouldn't get them back for a full week. So this was a big problem, and good quality powder coating equipment is expensive, time consuming. You need a full-time employee. So you got to fork out the price of the equipment. Then you got to pay somebody 50 grand a year to use it. So at $7,000 a month, we were right around that threshold where we were like, you know what, payments on powder coating and paying a guy full time is going to come out to $7,000 a month. Let's do it, because
Yeah.
we can get our time from 2 weeks just for powder coating, 1 to 2 weeks just for powder coating, down to same day or next day. So interestingly enough, my parents have been in a photography business for the last 25 years, and they just retired. So my dad is actually the one powder coating stuff now, which is kind of
That's
cool.
so awesome.
And I mean, we need a guy almost full time, but I wouldn't say 40 hours a week. So right now, to do our own parts, it's like 30 hours a week. And then we've also advertised to do powder coating for just walk-in customers. So that once people start to know that we're doing that, and we will get a local walk-in traffic, and then the goal there is to break even on our part side, and then it is to compensate or make a little bit of profit on the walk-in side. So that's definitely possible. People do it out of their garage. Companies obviously make money powder coating stuff. So we have a very high-end setup. And when we moved shop, I actually kept the old shop, which is 2,000 square feet, and the whole shop is powder coating.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about a kilometer away, 5 minute walk, whatever. Pretty much it's on the same road. One's 67 Dufferin, the other one's 99 Dufferin. So basically we have two shops now, and then there's enough room over there that I can keep my pro car inside. We have a Corvette, and then we have a hoist over there. So we're still doing some of our development work over there and at the new shop. So we have like currently 6 cars in the shop just for development purposes, like Mazda Miata, Skyline, Corvette C7,
Nice.
RX-7 FD, and I don't know, a couple other things are over there that are slipping my mind. But there's a BRZ. We're gonna do a couple extra things on. I'm almost on a full rear kit
Nice. Good.
for the BRZ FRS. So yeah, we're doing a lot of stuff. And the point at which we decide where we need to go further, like what you were saying, is it the 3 week? Yes, it's 3 week. There's a number of things where I am spending a full month and a half to 2 months designing a kit. Why? Because it takes a long time to measure this stuff and then reverse engineer it. So this is why we made another step to follow along with your point. We got a 3D scanner from Creoform. So a Creoform 3D scanner, handy scan. And with this, for in like 1 week, I've probably done a month's worth of work in a week, at least, I would say.
Just scanning chassis and parts.
So basically I stickered these things up. So you need to put targets on the parts.
Okay.
And the scanner references the targets and keeps the targets as basically, like I said, reference points. And then everything else around those points, it will pick up as geometry. So I sandblasted like 20 parts, or I got one of my guys to do it. He brought them over, we stickered them all up, and I was just scanning all day for like a full day, just scanning stuff.
That's gonna be kind of fun though.
And it's amazing. Like when I get the scan, and I've always been pretty fluent with 3D CAD. I used to teach CAM, CNC programming, CAD. I used to teach at college. So using this software is like, as soon as I got the thing, they're like, oh, we'll give you a free day's worth or whatever of training and stuff. So I was on a Zoom call with them for a couple hours, and I was like, all right, guys, I'm going to go. I think I got it. And then we just on a call, and then the rest is history. I haven't emailed them or talked to them ever since. So
nice. That's good though. That's the way you got to do it, right? Like,
yeah, and Creoform's a Canadian company. Their support's awesome, and like guys like Chair Slayer use it.
I was just gonna ask, is that the same one? Because I've seen the shit he's doing with it, and it's crazy.
Yeah, he's insane. So basically, when I got, like, I mean, I've seen his videos, and we were pricing out these scanners, and the Creoform scanner was significantly more than competitors that claim to have the same accuracy. So basically, they're reading around 0.2 millimeters accuracy. That is, to put it simply, the size of the triangle that is created when scanning a surface. So when the scanner scans over a surface, like if we're talking about a steering knuckle on a car, it's creating that surface using triangles.
Yeah.
And these triangles are sized based on the accuracy, fluidity, and type of surface that you want, and they're all claiming to read down to 0.2 millimeters. So when I got on the phone with them, they were like, yeah, it's this much more, but this is why it's better and whatever. So then after like looking at Chair Slayer stuff, it just seems seamless, right? Like I couldn't find much data on the other brands, so I knew enough about his, and it was just like, we're just gonna have to go for this one, even if it is a bit more. Luckily, we talked them into getting a really competitive price on it. So I really couldn't say no after a few emails going back and forth, which pays off. Like, let me tell you, if you're like, if we go into, like, I can't even tell you how many sponsorship requests we get now. So if I was to give anybody advice on how to get a sponsorship, I could definitely touch on that.
Yeah.
I can't even see. Basically, these comments are stuck still, like they don't.
Oh my, yeah, I've been like kind of scrolling them up on the odd occasion. If you want I'm pretty sure the mic that's being picked up is the one on your headphones. If you want, you can swing that forward, because I don't know if the Yeti's picking up right now.
This one's picking up. This
I'm
is
pretty
picking up.
sure. Yeah, it sounds like it.
So it
You
sounds better.
you could yeah, there you go. You can try and change it if you want. Where we changed the
Nah,
audio settings before, but
if it sounds fine, I'll just put. I don't know why this one says it says on the computer that this one's connected, but maybe it's not.
it might be overriding. Gotta love gaming headsets. They're just so needy.
So
But
this one is sounds fine.
now, yeah, you're good now. Yeah, you're good.
Okay,
It
cool.
was just rubbing a bit, when you, I'm not complaining. I just, people bitch in comments. So I want to
Hey,
save you from that.
you know what? Complaining solves a lot of problems.
Man,
So
it's so true. It's funny. I say this to clients all the time because like a lot of what I do is advertising work, and people automatically assume that like whatever you're going to do as an advertiser is going to work immediately. And my job is to get it as close as possible. But like I explain to people, look, if something doesn't work, we're going to gain as much data, if not more data, from that than we are if it was a success. If it's a success, we may not necessarily know why it was a success. We just know this entire package is. If something fails, we can see the failure point and we can fix that and then move ahead. If something works immediately out of the gate, you just know that everything within this box works, but you don't necessarily know why. So anyways, it's always a
yeah,
hard pitch,
you
especially when people are paying you. But
it's a hard pitch to make because it's a simple concept to grasp, but
yeah,
it's kind of difficult to explain. I've said in multiple occasions, we recently paired up with FedEx and just our account with them. Obviously, you can imagine we ship a lot of stuff. So we're spending like let's say 150 to 200K a year in shipping.
Jesus.
And so I'm on the FedEx committee board, if you will, for small businesses and how I went from point A to where I am now and all the train like I was handwriting these packing slips and driving them to the post office and paying absurd amounts of money to ship stuff. So I started there and then I got an account with UPS and then I was still handwriting these things until I got an online account. And then like obviously it's seamless now. Like we
Yeah,
can go on our website. I can basically it does almost everything for you. But how did I get there without making all these other mistakes?
right.
I wouldn't have got there. The only way I would have gotten there is if someone like me told you how to do it. And sometimes, like you got to think, I wish somebody did. The problem with being an entrepreneur and starting a business is you don't have the answers to anything. You can compare notes with somebody that's
Similar.
in the food industry or like sells yoga
Yeah,
mats or something, but like you're not going to be able to get the answers to your questions. You're only going to be able to get an idea. So basically, I learned through everything the hard way to get to where I am now. And could I write a book on it in a couple of years? Probably. Like we're still only running at like probably 60% efficiency. Like we got a lot of things to get better at. We got a lot of things to clean up and do faster, especially when it comes to like I order literally everything um, that has to do with the business and getting the supplies and materials that we need to make this stuff. So, and I'm not an organized guy. So basically, it's a miracle. Like my mom says it all the time. Not she doesn't say it's a miracle that the business even works, but basically that I was able to orchestrate it in a way that actually does work because I'm getting a lot better efficiency wise. But yeah, like you were saying, mistakes are the best lesson.
yeah,
Even if it costs you, you would have had to pay 20 grand to take a course on that to learn. Like if you went to university for business, for example, it's a really expensive course to take. And you may not have even learned that lesson, to be honest
yeah,
with you. You may not have even gotten that. So basically, I'm learning the lessons directly where it actually matters and it's relevant. And then I know exactly what to do to fix it.
yeah,
Because, like you said, you either see a failure or you see where, like, I'm clearly spending $150 to ship a package that should cost $50. So something's not working here because nobody's willing to pay it. So
hmm,
obviously, people are able to ship things
cheaper.
way more efficiently, and so on. So that's probably the biggest change because as we began shipping more and more stuff, this was a problem that had to be addressed immediately. Um,
Especially
and
shipping
yeah,
from Canada. Like that's just like that's something people in the US don't just have no idea about. It's like The moment you cross the border, everything is infinitely more complex. It's just with whatever you're doing, whether you're traveling, you're shipping, you're buying, you're selling, it's just immediately a hassle. And obviously, the US is such a big market that if you can't find a way to adapt and overcome and find a better way, you're not going to. It sucks. It sucks that Canada can't support most of its own markets, but it just can't. We are so heavily dependent on the US.
Directly, yeah. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing that like our steel prices are dependent on the US
Yeah.
as well. And even if we're ordering raw material and cutting it ourselves, um, still depends on the US. Like that's where
Yeah.
they're getting it from. So and then the US isn't always getting it from the US either. So that's that's a whole nother story. But
Oh man, China steel? No, that's never happened.
yeah, it's impressive that they're able to like whenever you ship something, it's based on the weight of whatever you're shipping, right?
Right.
It's incredible that even with the weight of something as dense as just steel, that you can still manufacture it overseas, put that on a boat and send it here and then sell it from the US and then to Canada. You can do all of that cheaper than just making it ourselves. It blows my mind.
Yeah, it's I mean, as much as I'd
Because
love to get into like global economics.
that's a lot of additional cost when you're talking about a month at sea.
Right.
The labor it requires on both ends. Like let's say on the Chinese end, they don't pay anybody. So okay, but they got to pay people on our end to
Yeah.
unload it.
And
So like all
import
these
fees
costs,
yeah.
so all these costs are factored in, and it's still cheaper. It's like it's impressive. It's impressive.
All right, well, let's get it. We definitely got into business, and I think you and I could probably just sit down and talk like business and policy and things like that, probably forever. Um, let's just talk. Let's get into drifting. I think obviously a lot of people who are here they want to talk about drifting. Um, One of the things that I am a big proponent of is just sharing information when it comes to setup and things like that, especially to younger guys, grassroots guys. I am not professing to know a ton. I am pretty good at being able to look at things and figure out what is wrong with the car, but maybe not necessarily how to fix it. And that's mostly just because of my video background, where I've looked at so many cars in action, especially in slow motion, because that's kind of became my thing.
Mhm.
For me, I'm usually able to look and be like, oh, there's an issue with rebound control or something. You can see the car skipping, you can see stuff like that. We touched on it a little bit before we even started, but what what do you think the biggest mistake guys are making right now with their setups, whether they're running your kit or stock kits or anything else? I know what it is in my mind, but I'm curious what you think from somebody that obviously is your livelihood.
That's a good question. Like we had just a quick talk before the video started, but I would say that the biggest thing that people are focusing on that is somewhat irrelevant is like we got to pick a topic because whatever, like if we're going to talk about getting more grip out of a chassis, then the thing that people may focus on too much in terms of their level that they're drifting at would be the mechanical setup of the chassis versus the tires compound and the tires air pressure. When you're talking about mechanical advantage, you're talking about a 5% margin
Right.
of improvement over your competitor. If you can figure out a mechanical advantage over them, you're going to gain 5% based on your anti-squat and your roll center and your sway bar setups and whatever you're going to do in the rear of the car or in the front of the car to gain more grip, to go faster, or to handle better. You're talking about a margin once you have the car set up well enough and you buy a well-known kit, let's say front and rear. Like I said, you're talking about a margin that's
When you buy an
super small.
FDF kit, when you buy an FDF kit, we'll clear everybody else out. We've already talked about them. Let's get rid of that. And after you buy your FDF kit, this is what you need to do.
So
you're too modest, God damn it.
Well, when we talk about it, yeah, like we can only be biased to a certain extent. Like I'm up in here in Canada. I ran at a competition event where we had 23 drivers and 19 of them are running FDF kits. And then first and third place were FDF kits. Now, the driver who won is an amazing driver.
Mhm.
And then second place was Dave Briggs,
Who is an
who runs,
ex-pro driver.
yeah, it runs PBM front and rear. This is what I'm talking about, though. When you're comparing suspension brands and companies and whatever, this is something I've talked to with a exceptionally good driver, Mike Pollard, who's basically run it all. Um, to him, like, he's still going to win. Like, it doesn't really matter what he's driving; he's still going to win. Um, so he's just an exceptional driver. So you give him tools that he feels the car is working better, which is why he's been running our kits for the last 2 years, and he feels that he's gained something, a big something. It's marginal. Like I was saying, it's marginal. So when the biggest mistake that people are making is trying to get a mechanical advantage over their counterparts, and what they should be focusing on is what we talked about: seat time, getting behind the wheel of the car, because if you are a better driver than somebody else, you are going to have a 15 to 20% advantage over them. If you have a better alignment than them, you're going to have a 5% advantage on them. So it's
Yeah.
like, let's focus on what really matters here and then dial in the setup, because that number continues to get smaller and smaller as you deal with like setting up the front, setting up the rear. You're losing 10% here, then you're losing 10% there, and all you really needed to do was just change your compounded tires if you feel like you're too slow. It's like you're married to one tire brand and it's just not competitive. So like, changing your tires and changing the air pressure will make a much bigger difference than if you were to just say, oh, like, I just extended my traction arm and I got like so much more grip. It's like, it's marginal. Like, I'm telling you, there is definitely things that need to be done to gain those advantages mechanically, and those are things that if you have the understanding, then you should do it. This is why I've done my suspension geometry videos on YouTube,
Which are anybody
because
listening, please just go and watch. Like, yeah, if you are a drifter, if you at any point in time need to touch your suspension, please watch these videos first.
so it's a basic understanding
Yeah.
of what's happening. So if you have the same kit, like if you both have FDF kits on your S chassis, but one of you is running a wider track width,
Mhm.
okay, you extended your control arms a bit more. But what else does this change? It changes everything. It
Yeah.
changes your kingpin axis angle, which changes the amount of grip that you're going to have at lock. And if you change it, and if one guy has their rack relocated 25 millimeters and the other guy has their rack relocated 40 millimeters, I showed in my video dynamically throughout your rack's travel range, you're going to get a totally different toe curve
Yeah.
or Ackerman curve, whatever you understand it as, from lock to lock. It's totally different. Like, it's not even like we're talking, I would move the rack 1 inch of travel and I had my rack relocated forward versus relocated backwards on my display. And I did the same 1 inch of movement with my steering rack. One is with the rack forward, one is with the rack backwards. We saw a difference in 5 degrees of angle. So what is that, like, how relevant is that? It's huge. It's
Yeah.
massive, considering that like Formula One cars or time attack cars are only ever turning 10 to 15 degrees max to actually race around a track. 5 degrees is huge. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, if your buddy's got his rack relocated and you don't, you can't even compare notes with them. You
Mhm.
can't. And then
Everything else, yeah. Everything else
if
is
you're
going to be different.
running so, but what everyone talks about is that they have the same camber caster toe. It's like, what should I run for toe? Oh, just run 1/8 toe out or slight toe out, whatever, 0.2 degrees. What should I run for my caster? 5.5. What should I run for my camber? -4. Okay, we have the same numbers, but our cars are handling different. Well, your rack's in the factory location. My rack's not. Your track width is wider. Mine is narrower. You're running +12 offset. I'm running +20 offset. Those two kits couldn't handle more differently. Like, they couldn't. And
Yeah.
then you factor in where your center of gravity is, which I know nobody's measuring. And you've got a totally different chassis from your buddy, even if they're both a 1997 240 or if they're both a 2003 BMW, whatever. Like, it's not even comparable. So this is what everybody needs to understand on a basic level. That what I just said was all basic. Like it if you wanted to research it outside of my own videos, which my videos are trying to pertain to drifting specifically,
Yeah.
because there really isn't any data out there. Like if you typed in scrub radius, you're going to get a ton of forums and a ton of information. It's great information. You should all read it. But the problem is it's always related to a factory car or a race car, like a time attack car,
Yeah.
road race car, Formula One car, whatever. So reading those is fine. Understanding it by reading it is what you should be doing. Applying it to your drift car is where we need to take that step um, beyond what you really can't find online. And you can find forums for drifting where they have opinions on pretty much everything. But then you look at professional drifters in Japan that like to run a lot of scrub radius, and then you come and read about scrub radius, and they're like, well, they shouldn't like a lot of scrub radius.
Mhm.
So it's something that you need to understand, and then their style of driving, the tire compound that they're running. Oh my goodness, their chassis setup. What is their kingpin axis? You don't even know what angle that is at on their car. So if you're like, oh, like he's put a 4-inch spacer on, if he's got 30 degrees of KPI, he's going to have a low scrub radius still. Like I'm not saying he does. I'm just saying you don't you don't know what these cars have, and you can't compare notes to an extent. Like the only way you can compare is literally if you built two of the same cars. So like if we could compare two HGK cars that are built, they're obviously blueprinted and made pretty much identical. So that's something that you can compare.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's like you're sponsored by Kansai. Well, you're sponsored by Cosmos. Kansai and Cosmos don't even make wheels that have the same offset. So right off the bat, you can't even like you can talk about it with each other and see what handles and how it handles and so on. But you could go on about it, but that's basically the main point is that nobody has a basic understanding and everybody needs a basic understanding. And if I'm the guy to do that, that's fine. If you want to get your information from somewhere else, there's tons of information out there. Like I'm not reinventing any sort of wheel here. Like this is all over the place.
Yeah. You're
All
just you're just
online.
you're repackaging it with much better dynamic visuals though. And I think that's what the difference is that like the references that a lot of people have when it comes to like steering setups or differential setups of those like black and white 1940s. Okay, we've got one post here and one post here on a wheel, and this is how a differential works. So you've taken that, which we all kind of know and love, and then adapted it to a sport where you actually need this information. Um, yeah, that's you know what I mean. I think that's why I love those videos so much. Is like you are getting the information as well as a very very good dynamic display. Because the way that I learn, for me just to read that information is not going to happen. The moment you show me how different that travel is, it's like holy shit. Like now I can't
Really
argue with it
important.
because it's there.
Really
And
important. And it's really important to make a display that you can touch it.
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
because
Dioramas are
it's like
fucking awesome. It's like
because
Science
it's like
Center, but for
if
drift cars.
like when you're working on your car, like you got to loosen a bolt to adjust something. So when I'm on this display, I got to do the same thing. So it's like, well, what do you loosen? Well, I built
So
the display to have the same attachment points as if it was a factory chassis or the chassis that we'd be working with. And by doing that, it's like, oh wow, he's adjusting the two bolts on the McPherson strut where there is usually a slot, and he's gaining camber, but only at the wheel. It doesn't change the kingpin axis
because
angle.
it
So it's
pivots
like
at that point. Yeah.
now this is that for display purposes, this was like exaggerated. Like even if a car does, like if you look at an RX-7 FC from the coilover brands available that I've
Mhm.
seen, and then from the factory knuckle, there is no camber adjustment there. So I'm not
Crash
saying that
bolts.
every yeah, I'm not saying that every car has it, but I was basically saying if the factory angle has a mounting point that's already angled, then
Mhm.
they don't need to have it because they've already built it in to have
Into
that
it.
angle. So it's like with a 240, they knew that there was going to be some variance between, and then like Nissan used the S14 and the S13 and the S15. They were all basically the same. Like
Yeah.
they increased the spindle diameter on when they went from 13 to 14, and then they moved the tension arm bracket a bit further away. But otherwise, dimensionally, they're the same. The steering rack, the S13 rack was a 48 millimeter, and then the S14 rack was a 45 millimeter. So like very minor changes. Dimensionally, they're the same. When you're talking about alignment specs and stuff, you're going to set it up the same way. The S14 had a slightly wider track width and so on. So you could go into that because I know everything about those. But basically, in saying that, what we have to do with what was the like that? I'm kind of off
I don't even
topic
know.
now
All
completely.
that I know is that you light the fuck up the moment you start talking about suspension geometry. Like you get so excited about this topic. And one, that is why you run a successful business, to go back to our previous topic. And two, why, once again, that excitement, the moment you start talking about this shit, you're just like, just please ask me more questions about it. You know what I mean? You're
Yeah,
very ready to
yeah,
explain anything and everything.
exactly. But it's something that just needs to be explained. So
I
it's
agree.
like,
I 100% agree.
and it's exciting and it's interesting. So when you can
I
see
mean, for
these
you, it
changes,
is.
yeah. Well, I'm not saying that from using this display, I found something out that I didn't already know, but from
You
using
just,
this display, I definitely saw changes that were more drastic than I had initially thought. For example, the rack relocation changes the toe curve when you're going through your travel range of like from 0 degrees to close to 70 degrees.
mhm.
And this is important because that's where we can't like if we're drifting at, if we had to pick an angle that we average while in drift, like let's call it 30 to 35 degrees. Once you go to lock and once you're locked into a corner, the majority of the time you're not drifting at full lock. Um, this
No.
is obviously up for debate depending on tracks and whatever, but let's just say that's super important that it takes a different amount of turns and the rack has a different amount of leverage in order for the wheel to get to the same angle if you just relocate the rack. Like this is like super basic and it's super important. And yeah, like we could go on and on and on about specifics to do a suspension setup, but basically understanding what we've done 5 episodes. We just did scrub radius. We launched it today. Scrub radius and kingpin inclination or steering axis inclination. These two go hand in hand and they are. Oh, we just lost
I
our
saw that. We just lost the Instagram
Instagram.
one. Want to do another one? We'll just set up another one, but keep going. I guess if I can remember how to do this.
I guess it's a limit to an hour,
It
probably.
must be, yeah. That's funny. I don't know if they'll let me do another one. Huh. That's
That's
funny.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was good though.
they can hop on. Maybe they'll transition over to. Maybe you'll see an influx of viewers coming over.
Oh, I might be able to do another one again. Well, it doesn't matter. If we can get this going again, I'd rather do that. People seem pretty stoked with it. So, um, FDF send request. There you go. Ah, part two. Yeah, dude, we already crushed an hour. It's crazy how fast it goes, huh? Ah. Sorry, live stream people. Got to keep the YouTube people happy too.
Can you see how many people are on your live stream?
I was seeing like 20 or so on the Instagram stuff. So
Yeah, that was around there.
but sweet. Yeah, I don't even know where you're at. But question for you: will you be bringing that display to like when you compete? Is that coming with you to check things, or like is it one of those like I feel like I know what I need to know to get this done?
That display has no dimensional like relation
Similarity
to
to
any
okay,
vehicle whatsoever.
okay,
So it was based on like to be honest with you, everything that's adjustable on it
it's
is just
exaggerated.
25 millimeter spacing and 50 millimeter spacing, or basically 1 and 2 inch spacing.
Hmm.
To put it simply. I know it's not exactly, it's 25.4, but
Oh,
the it's 20,
sorry.
well, 1 inch is 25.4 millimeters.
Right.
The spacing of the jig was just for simplicity. Like if I had to add anything to it, I need to know is that, oh, I
Okay.
can make a bracket and just drill 2 holes 2 inches apart and it'll go anywhere on this jig. That's
Right.
why I built it. That's how I built it. It does not
It was
relate to any
okay.
vehicle
It was
whatsoever.
purpose built for display, not to relate
Yeah,
to
it
a
will
chassis.
not be. But the interesting thing about that display is that a college professor from St. Lawrence and Kingston messaged me and said, "I've been using your videos in my advanced automotive class,
That's
automotive
pretty sweet.
techniques, advanced automotive techniques. It's called like AAT course or something." And then he's like, "We got to get that display. Like you gotta make more of them, and then you got to sell them." And I was like, "Well, to be honest, I have never seen one like it, where you can actually give a car a zeroed out angle. Like if you wanted to um, play around with your chassis, let's say your BMW, for example, and
Yeah.
you wanted to see how kinematically it would change if you zeroed out the caster, you can't zero out the caster. Like there is no adjustment range that will allow you to do that. The wheel's going to run into the back of the wheel well or the tower. You're just not going to be able to do it. So like
Mhm.
on this jig, I can zero the caster, but I can have all the other angles at a factory setting. And it's like, you can't do that anywhere. Nobody can show you what's happening when
Mhm.
you eliminate all other characteristics and focus on one. So when I was doing that in one of the first videos, I said, let's eliminate every single thing except for caster and see what's actually happening. And I graphed it and I put it on a table. And then you could see that caster was affecting the wheel in this way. And we know that caster is doing this effect because that's the only thing that is on this jig right now. Like there's no KPI angle, there's no other angles to play around with. It's
Mhm.
just caster. So it's
It's
like
yeah.
we were able to do that and show you like, why is my wheel gaining so much camber? And it's like, let me tell you, this is why. And then just show you. And then I can give you a little table with like some comparative notes and you can like take a screenshot of it or whatever. Like it's that simple. It's as basic as it can be. And then like trying to explain scrub radius. And I'm like, let's talk about the effects of having a positive zero and negative scrub radius. Okay. Well, what's the easiest way to do this? And I'm like going through all these ideas. I actually made a 33-minute video on scrub radius and KPI, sent it to my buddy Tom, and well, it was posted for a little bit, and Tom's like, "This is way too long. Like you're talking about way too many things. There's too much stuff."
There's so
And
much. I want to
and
see this
like,
now.
well, we didn't delete it. We just saved it because it was basically we said, "Okay, no, you're right. We got to do a point form." So I
It was thick.
basically it's too thick, double seed.
Yeah.
We had to basically I just wrote down a point form questionnaire, gave it to my videographer Jack, and then we redid the whole thing, but in like 10 minutes. It was 12 minutes. And like when I say it was 12 minutes long, like we filmed it in probably 13 minutes.
Mm.
So it was like one take. We just did the 33-minute version. We know exactly what we're going to talk about, but we're going to really condense it. So I
Trim all the
basically,
fat. Yeah.
a lot of fat was in that one. So I just kept like basically on one scene, it was like 10 minutes of just straight up what's happened. I said, this is perfect for a podcast, that whole video probably. But for the purpose of a YouTube video where you're trying to tell somebody what something is, didn't work, way too much talking. So we redid it. And it's a good thing that we did that. So when talking about it, I'm trying to think of like, what can everybody relate to? What can I visually say that somebody's going to be able to be like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I was like, okay, well, let's say we have 3 different versions of scrub radius and you get a flat tire. What's happening when you get a flat tire with positive, zero, and negative scrub radius? This visually can now align everybody into a scenario that we can all understand. Because when you say like, if you have positive scrub radius and you're cornering and you have 70% weight transfer on the outside wheel, what are the effects on your steering on that wheel? And then dynamically, what are the effects on the other wheel? Because you only have 30% on that. Like
Mm.
we can't give that as an example because there's too many things going on and like we can't relate to it. So anyways, it was 12 minutes, much better.
Yeah.
Um,
I haven't seen that
I don't
one
know
yet.
if you didn't watch that one yet,
No,
but
no. It's not, I didn't get time.
yeah, like
Do my homework.
it's only 12 minutes this time, so it's not you can take a break or watch it in no time.
I will say, your videographer is doing a fantastic job from one media guy to another. Dude is absolutely doing a fantastic job. So, I think I met him once just briefly at the track this summer, but um, yeah, I know we've got a couple of questions if you want to get to any of them in particular. There's one here in the chat where a guy is asking which FD drivers are going to be running FDF in 2021. I
It's a
guess
good question.
I,
There's so last year we had 13 drivers um, get on our program, get the kits, install them, and then coronavirus happened. So there ended up being like Alec Robbins, Steve Misko, Ricky Hoffman. Then there's a couple other guys running like various products of that we sell. Like if we
yeah,
sell heel plates or steering column kits or just adjustable control arms or whatever. So
yeah, general things.
there's definitely quite a few just running random stuff, and then there's a couple that are just dedicated front, rear, full FDF. I actually built Steve Misko and Ricky's cars. They brought them to Canada.
Oh, right.
Uh, we built them and then we sent them back. So those two drivers would have been like, yeah, that's fully FDF. But then when we're talking about who's going to be on this year in Prospect, it's one of those things that I really like to reiterate when I get emails about sponsorships is like the amount of people that promise and don't deliver is probably like it's not in favor of supporting them, to be honest. Like if out of
Yeah,
10 out of 10
it's a
guys,
problem.
you're going to get 3 that commit to
Yeah,
what they said that they would do for you, or and then like we're really banking on the overachievers, honestly, and they do a lot of stuff for us, and we support them fully. I mean, we start off with like these guys are paying a decent amount still for these kits. Like we don't give anything away for free. So to then see the return and the amount that they're willing to do for us, that's when they start seeing the support from us. And this is because of the amount of sponsorships that have fallen through and not committed. So like we're doing signed contracts at this point. Like we
you have to. You
are,
have to. Absolutely have to.
yeah. Well, at the
Yeah,
beginning, like we weren't. When I say at the beginning, like a couple of years ago, we were pretty relatively small, to be honest. It was just
yeah. Well, it's
me
just
and a
word of mouth
welder.
and emails, right? You're like, well, I got an email that says you do this, right?
Exactly. So we're doing
Yep.
signed contracts. Like there's expectations on both sides to meet the needs of the driver, and then there's the drivers need to fulfill. Because honestly, if I'm giving you a discount, I need that value back in something else. And
Yeah, media
gen-
exposure, sales, like sales. Ultimately, you need it back in sales. At the end of the day.
yeah, and if you have it back in sales, then you will be supported further, and you will
Yeah,
get either better discounts or free parts or whatever, depending on your performance. So we always start out very modestly when it comes to giving a discount or supporting or partnering up with the driver, and then we see what happens. So this year, again, I'm going to say there's at least 15 pro licensed drivers that have made the purchase and gotten our products. And yeah, could I list them all? I have no idea if they're going to commit to going to
well,
Prospect or not. So
it's tough, and on that note, like there's so much going on that got dropped on FD drivers in the off season that you know, I mean, just to come to their defense in a way, um, nobody fucking knows what they're doing. I've talked to I don't know how many Pro 2 drivers. I'm like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, we actually have no idea now. Like, do we? A lot of them are getting the invite to go up to pro, right? So they're in this boat where it's like, do you commit to pro, try and run 8 rounds, which is incredibly tough, or do I start remodifying this car to start going back, or do I build another car? Like, there's no simple decision for a modest budget Pro 2 guy right now, which really sucks. You know what I
yes,
mean?
um, a lot of people have asked me about it because I'm currently building another car right now, RX-7 FD, to pro spec, like the rear rad, the pedal box, the steering column, basically everything that they are getting rid of. And it's got a HGT sequential transmission in it, twin turbo LS, 1,000 horsepower build.
Yeah, it's ready for pro, but
Yeah, we
it's
can't
to
run
be
this in Pro 2 anymore
no, it's fucked.
as of
Yeah.
yeah. So what's going to happen with Pro Spec? I think that they were, I'm not making accusations and I could be completely wrong, but like it's kind of goes along with that. Like any publicity is good publicity. That created a lot of chatter. Like I don't know if you noticed, but like
Yeah, dude.
anyone that had anything to do with drifting was
Came out of
talking
the
about it.
woodwork. Yeah, old
This
drivers,
is
new drivers,
this is
forums,
good.
everything.
This is good. This is relevant. This makes everybody talking about it. This is a big deal. Like they did something that put a wave through everybody in the drift community. And it's
Yeah.
funny because I talk to other guys that are in pro or whatever, and they're kind of laughing because it's like some of these posts had 5, 6, 700 comments, hundreds of shares, and it's like there's only 40 drivers in FD and in Pro 2, and I mean last year there was only like 16 or 17
Yeah.
because of COVID. So it's like, what is there this many people concerned? Like, guys, you don't need to build a pro level car
Right away.
right away, and everything is subject to change. Like the amount of times where like I get it if you've already taken out your pedal box and you've already got a rear rad and whatever, it kind of sucks. You're still able to run this year. So it's almost like an incentive to get in there, get it done, and move on. So they
Yeah.
want you to get in there, compete in pro spec, get the job done, finish in the top 8, get your pro license or petition for a pro license, and get on out of pro spec. Because what they're trying to do over the next 5 to 10 years, so my opinion, they're trying to make it more of a split between Pro and Pro 2. Right now, the winners of Pro 2, there's a Pro car with 255 tires on it. That's what
Yeah,
it is.
that's it. Oh yeah, they all are.
So their transition is bigger tires and go on. Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
So they want there, I think, they want there to be a split or a difference that makes sense. And is the steering column thing kind of silly? In my opinion, yes. It's not a financial burden on a team to change it. And when you got a guy like me who's 6'5", like you got to get rid of that factory column. That's just one of the first things I do. So for me, that's like I can do all the work for it and whatnot. That's fine. Maybe other people can't. But like I've done a number of installs on this stuff, and like you're talking 8 to 10 hours to charge somebody to do it. So like if somebody had to pay for all the parts and pay a shop to do it, like you're not talking about a lot of money here. That's going to break the bank any more than like a GSR dog box will, or switching to a quick change. And
Yeah.
but I think they're doing this progressively
To bring them back closer.
it's all
to
subject to change. It's all subject to change, but they're doing it progressively, and it's going to continue to get more and more strict to the point where we are drifting pretty high horsepower stock cars, like a middle ground chassis is what they're competing with. And that is ultimately the goal, to have a low budget field to compete with. Because right now, you take out the steering column, you take out the pedal box, you still can run 900 horsepower, and the rear rad thing won't be changed until 2024.
And it's not even confirmed that it's going to change. It is. Just
I don't think it will. I don't think it will, just because the benefits of running. Well, it's a financial thing. They want to make it so that if somebody can't change it, that they're not at a disadvantage financially. If they can't change it, they're not at a disadvantage, which arguably, if you don't want to change it, it's not a disadvantage. The only thing that you're risking is that your rad is in a vulnerable spot. There's a lot of heat if you're running a turbo engine setup. Like these are things that aren't, they're reliability dependent, not advantage. It's not an advantage. You're going to get more weight over the axle, but like, again, this is what we talked about in the chassis setup thing and what you should focus on with changing. That's going to be marginal in comparison to other aspects like seat time and driver skill. So
Yeah.
if somebody's got a front rad and the other guy's got a rear rad, how much faster is he going to be if those are the only two changed variables? We're talking 1 to 2% speculation, but I'm pretty sure I'm right on that one. So like it's one of those things. Like there's guys that'll walk all over you. Front rad, basic setup.
Oh yeah.
Mike
We saw
Polar's your
Travis Reeder
classic
do it.
example. Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah. Another one. Yeah.
So this is the.
But what I don't. Here's my question though. Why not say? And I guess they kind of have. You have 3 years, or you have 2 years to build this car. Like we're gonna go right to that. We're gonna go right to that spec style car where it is like, okay, you got the interior, you cage it, and you can add whatever engine you want, but you know everything else has kind of got to stay the same. Why not just give everyone 2 years and just say that's what's going to happen in 2 years? Pro 2 guys, you have 2 years to either decide what you're going to fucking do. Are you going to pick up your game and try and make the jump to pro? It's tearing the Band-Aid off. Like, why are they tearing the Band-Aid off slowly? Just get it over with. If that is what you want to do, it does seem very much like we're going to test the waters with this and test the waters with this. And the problem with that, and realistically, the only people that have a severe problem with this is someone that has already made those changes. So how many people do you think are out there that are at that level that have built a pro car where this is actually of inconvenience? You've confirmed 40 in Pro 2. How many Pro-Am guys? Probably another.
Yeah, Pro-Am's a big one because these guys built their cars for Pro-Am. It's probably in the 100 to 200 range.
Yeah, I was going to say a couple thousand, like North American wide, because like locally we could probably name 4 or 5 just within our own little community. We're like, oh yeah, no, this is a problem for these guys. But anyways, I would have, if somebody came to me, if Ryan Sage is like, Jacob, we love your opinions, run the fucking company, how do we do this? I would say, give everybody 2 years, make it a thing. Here you go. Here's what the car is going to look like. Pro 2 guys, you have 2 seasons. Either get your shit together or build one of those. Your call. It sucks, and you're going to piss off a lot of people. But
so how did they? Like, I don't think they really did that. Like, they kind of actually did do that. This year, if you have a sequential, you got to change it. That actually kind of makes sense. You know why?
I agree. That one
sequential is a huge advantage when we're dealing with a bunch of pro level cars on a 255 tire. Yeah. If we're going to talk about any kind of advantage over somebody else, that has to do with money, which is what their main point is.
That's the sequential.
Sequential is the biggest financial difference that you're going to find. Not the biggest. I think it's one of the biggest that you're going to find between having a much faster car off the start than somebody else is if you've got 20 grand to dump in a box and everyone else has 5 to 10. So taking that and then we're all on 255 tires and we're all on the same brand tires. That's the other variable that I was telling you about, where you can get 20 to 30% of difference in grip just by changing your air pressure in your tire compound.
Look at the difference between Nitto. Look at the difference between in Pro 2, was it Nitto and Achilles? Like, just go look at the winners. Like, yeah, there's definitely a huge advantage with tire there.
Yes. So talking about that, it's like that was a great move. Like, I don't think that sequential transmissions have any place in Pro 2.
I agree.
And that is a huge flex if you have a lot of money, that you're rolling up to the line with a sequential 6-speed transmission.
Yeah.
And we're all running H pattern 4 speeds, which I love. I wouldn't have changed it even if I did go and made it to Pro 1 at some point. Well, maybe I would. I wouldn't say that, but I like a 4-speed.
Sam Sonos walks up. It's like, yo.
Sure. So that was an excellent point, move, made perfect sense. The other aspects, which are subject to change because it's not effective until 2022 is everyone needs to be on link for FD. Is that correct?
Yep. And
then 2023 is the column and pedal boxes, or are those being in effect in 2022 as well?
No, I think no, they are in 2022. 2023, I think it's just the rad and it says proposed. So
okay.
I believe. I understand what you're saying.
As I said, they decided to cause a bunch of chatter and they succeeded probably surpass their expectations.
It's
Like
as a marketing move, it's a fantastic move. Make a big thing, and everyone is going to be talking about it.
It's the same as the Square cereal company that said, "Look, we now have diamonds," and all they did was just rotate the picture on the box. Brilliant! It's absolutely brilliant. People that said, "Oh, that's dumb," whatever.
Are we talking about it? If you and I still fucking remember that, it worked. If it didn't
brilliant.
actually, yeah, it's brilliant.
The problem I had with that one was that so many people had the conversation where like, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." I'm like, "That's the smartest thing I've ever seen ever." Like, it's like not a single thing changes for them.
No.
But everyone's talking about it. I was like, it's brilliant. If you could change nothing and have everyone all of a sudden talk about your brand, wow, like you've hit the jackpot.
All that you're doing is pointing out something that's incredibly obvious that already existed.
It's brilliant. And people that said it, that is so stupid. Amazing. You're absolutely right. But
it's funny. But in stating that, they prove their own point. It's brilliant because you think it's stupid and you tell somebody you've acknowledged and spent part of your day talking about that brand in whatever level.
100%.
There it is.
That's got value. That's got value.
Brand recognition, man.
So when they came out with the prospect rule book, they effectively did cause so much chatter, shares, whatever. And the reason that I'm saying this is because I'm about to develop and make a replacement subframe for the 350Zs. And the one, like literally one of the first questions was, it was a story. So they just replied to it. "Oh, is it going to be FD legal?" Like, no, it's not. You can't run a fully replaced subframe in FD.
Yeah.
But who cares? Like, if you got to swap it out, you got to swap it out. And
there's 40 people that can't buy this.
That's my point. That's my point. It's like, and that's what a couple of the FD guys were saying when they were like, "That's a great idea. This is something that we need. What's the price point going to be?" So I'm telling them the price point. They're like, "Wow, that's great." Like, an actual FD driver isn't pointing out the fact that it's not FD legal. They just think it's a great idea to improve something that needs improving.
Yeah.
And then everyone else that's nowhere near FD is like, "Oh my goodness, it's not FD legal. I can't buy it." It's like, why? Are you going to FD? Like, have you made the conscious decision to put everything aside, pay thousands of dollars, invest
tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Yeah, you're right.
Not millions. It's not millions, but it is. It's full disclosure. To run a Pro 2 season comfortably, you need at least $30,000.
Yes, I would agree with you 100%.
You can do it for less. And I said comfortably, where like you have a hotel and you're not sleeping in a room with 7 or 8 guys, because that happens all the time. So you can do it for less, but yeah, you're committed $15,000 just between travel and.
Is this USD or Canadian?
USD, 100% USD.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, that money does not travel well. I like having US clients. I hate traveling to the US or buying US shit right now.
Yeah, you just look at it and you just so much more than it's advertised right now. It's like, you think McDonald's, you're getting a good deal. You're like, you know what? McDonald's is more expensive in the US. The cups are bigger, so you get a lot more.
Get a lot more. And those fucking breakfast biscuits, though. Holy shit!
I know we could use some of that for sure, but when $6 equals 10, almost, it's like,
it's brutal. Like I said, I love having US clients. Every time a US client calls, I'm like, hey, I'll drop everything. I'm gonna do this for you. I did that very recently where I like pushed everything aside for one client.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking numbers, we had 79% of our sales US.
Yeah, that's killer.
9% of sales Canadian, 11% international, and the international one's going up quite a bit. Quite a bit in relation. Like, we're selling a ton to Japan. Like, we are selling a lot to Japan. Japan favors. You are big in
Japan.
I am huge in Japan. Like,
You're huge in Japan.
So our one dealer there said, "What size are you?" And I'm like, well, in Canadian, like if I'm buying a hoodie, like it's a double XL. Like, I'm 6'5", so I need a big sweater. And then he's like, "Ooh, we do not go like that size," like basically. And he sent me a quadruple X shirt, button up shirt with all the sponsors on it. It was really nice. Like it's the pitch shirt that they use in Japan that you've seen in the videos. Like it's really iconic to have one from Japan with my logos on it and all the other brands from a D1GP team. And it's not even close to fitting. This thing could have fit a 5'8", 350-pound man.
They don't build them long; they just build them out.
They don't build them long. Yeah, and I'm like, what are your door heights at? Like, what's the deal here? And he's like, you don't fit in our country, basically. So that's funny. That's funny that we drive.
Japan, I'm coming with you.
Oh, we have to. Like, we're going. As soon as COVID's gone, like there are so many. We've made so many connections there, which is, I can't believe we're missing all the benefits of what international sales as a racing company actually means. This means that we get to travel the world.
As a side benefit, it's huge. It's great. It's a
huge does it
business meeting? Tax write-off.
Is it going to cost you? Is it going to cost you a bunch of money? Yeah, it's going to cost you thousands, but it's also going to benefit you 10,000s and for years to come when you physically go to Japan and when they see you as the designer, the producer, and they know, like, the reason why the one dealer, Takashi, at Side 2 Enterprise in Japan, one of the best guys I've ever dealt with. This guy's amazing. When we sell to him, he literally will tell me something that, like, we're selling a ton of these curved tension arms for their S chassis because they love to just modify stuff there. They're all about the full kits, but they're more about the driver and the skill of the driver, and then just modifying their stuff to do what it needs to do. So they want 50 degrees and then they're happy. So they want these curved tension arms to miss, so the wheel misses the control arm and they can get their angle without rubbing, whatever. That's fine. We sell them for like $250. He comes to me and he's like, can you make a small change because my clients want to be able to pull their wheel further forward than what I had designed it for, let's say. And he tells me that over Facebook, and within 24 hours, I have his version cut on the water jet and being shipped next week to his specification. Yeah. And then I've been dealing with him for a little over an hour now, or not an hour, a year. An hour. Wow. I'm trying to read these questions at the same time. So a little over a year now, and he is just amazed at the fact that he can give me feedback, and directly or immediately after, he's getting, if there is a change that needs to be made, it's done. If something needs to be addressed, it's done. If he needs extra parts, it's shipped. Like he's never been able to talk to a company where he gets that kind of feedback. It just doesn't exist. So I don't know what the dynamic difference is between the other three companies that we compete with, and if it's that we are still that much smaller, which I don't think. To date this year, like, we're doing a lot of sales, and it's great and everything. Our expenses are just ridiculously high, but no, we talked about it earlier. I'm like, you're like, yeah, we sold this much, and I was like, dude, that's incredible. You're like, but we spent this much. I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, it's out of this world, the amount of cash flow in and out that it takes to do this. It's great. Like, you're like, wow, we did this many in sales. Like you just said, amazing. Like, it's crazy that we were able to sell this much internationally, because if we're talking internationally, the US is considered international. Canada, we're selling 9%. Like, come on, Canadians, we got to pick that up.
There's just not enough of us. That's the thing. Canada's a tough market because we're so regional, we're so culturalized. We're like, the US, okay, anybody who hasn't driven to the US, here's how it goes. You get on the interstate, you go city, and then you go outskirts of city, which is just suburbs. And then you drive for a little bit, and then there's some farms, and then you get a town, and then another town, and then like a major metropolis, but not like a big city, and then a couple more towns, and then you get another major city again. That's how it is.
You can sum up the population of Canada within just a couple cities, like Toronto, Montreal,
Vancouver,
and like you name Calgary, one or two. You name one or two more, and you're there. You're at like
that's it.
You're at like Canada's population. Yeah, like
all of Canada fits in California, if I'm not mistaken. The entire population of Canada is just the California market.
Yeah.
So it's tiny,
Yeah.
but like I said, we're regionalized. Like people from Quebec are incredibly different than people from Ontario versus Nova Scotia versus BC, Alberta. Alberta and Saskatchewan are pretty much the same people. I'm just kidding. But like Manitoba, you know, what I mean, so whereas in the States, like it flows into the next one. We are a very distinctive group, so it's like people in BC just may not like they may have their guy there, right? I'm not talking about your case in particular, but like
Yes.
when you look at
General.
markets, they're like I like to buy provincial very heavily
No,
because that's
you're
what we've got.
accurate in saying that. Like the U.S. is the U.S. and then Canada is the province.
Yeah,
You're Ontario, like Quebec. Like you just said, drifting in Quebec
is
is
completely
like,
different. It's so different.
well, it's awesome. Drifting in
It's
Quebec is awesome. Like if
yeah,
you basically when I went to compete in the U.S. Not having done DMCC yet, I went to the U.S. first. I went to the U.S. We did really well. The reason why basically we won the first couple rounds and then we just lost two in a row. It was the first time ever driving this car that I had finished like 2 weeks earlier.
yeah,
Not that we had any issues with it really, but this was a couple years. This was 2 or 3 years ago. Like we're talking, this car was so fast and like well built to the level that we were competing at. It was like I couldn't slow this thing down, and I didn't know what to do to slow the car down. So I was like straightening out behind cars that had 300 horsepower, and I just couldn't do it. And I wasn't adapted enough as a driver to make the
yeah.
corrections to the chassis where I should have said, put 50 psi in the back. Like
Let's
let's just
spin these
get it. We got to
bitches.
do
Yeah,
it. And we didn't do that. Like I was running 25 psi, and I would run this guy's door, fall back, run the door again, fall back, run the door again, like instantly. And I was
yeah,
like, and then there's no chance to fix it. You just, and then obviously in your lead run, they pretty much have an inactive chase. They're so far behind. So
but you
that's
can't
like,
win that way. Yeah, you're
no.
slicing off one half of it.
You can do an extent. Like the first guy I competed against was luckily one of the best cars and drivers there,
Yeah,
and we
I know it
won.
was your first round.
We beat the best guy there, and then in the first run, and it was like you're feeling great. You're like, well, this is the guy that we didn't want to face, and we just beat him. So like, what?
Yeah,
Like we're going right to the top. We lose to a stock, like not a stock, but an LS1, 300 horsepower, very basic S13. And with that, it's like, okay, well, we just lost with a fully built car, 100% because we straightened out and did a bunch of stupid stuff in the chase where we couldn't,
glad you said
we
it.
couldn't do it. I
Yeah,
came up and I was just like, I don't know how to slow this thing
well,
down.
you're gonna punch through the guy. You're just gonna fucking
I'm
punt him off the
plowing.
track. Yeah,
Yeah, you're plowing the brakes. You're like the brakes are now overriding the car, even though your bias is at 70% or it's totally in
you
the
still
front.
scrub so much speed,
Now
and
you're
you're already
clutching.
grippy. Yeah,
Now you're clutching and you're handbraking. You're clutching and you're handbraking. The car is just like this. It's like this. It looks terrible, and you're like, you got 30 seconds, and then that's it. And you're like, wow, that sucked. When you just competed against the best guy there, nice, fluent runs. It was amazing. He's fast. We're fast. Worked out great. We won. Awesome. Guys slow as hell. We had no, like, we just lost and made a fool of ourselves because we couldn't slow
yeah.
the car down. But as a spotter, Spotter was new. Spotter had no idea what he was talking about. Well, it was Donnie. I don't know if you've ever met Donnie, but
I
basically
think
he's got
so.
no business. He had no business at the time spotting. He would be fine now, but like he didn't.
No business.
Well, he's not like you got to look at the car you're going against and
I know.
understand that that car has been running a shallow line and super slow all day. So if you know that, air up the tires, slow her down, give them some space on initiation because you know you're still going to be able to catch up, and then that's how you solve the problem. Is you
Yeah,
adapt and you got to know
and
though. You got to know, and we didn't know. We didn't know. We just
well,
followed. We just go up and we're like, we're gonna run this guy's door. No, you're not. You're gonna run through this guy's door if you stay on the
even
gas.
attempt that
So
at 25. Yeah, yeah. Like
so that's what happened there.
this is learning by mistakes. You would not have learned any of this shit if you didn't make mistakes. Back to like conversation one. Yeah.
What I was saying from saying that in the U.S. back to the
Yeah.
point.
Sorry, yes, to Quebec.
When then I went to Quebec, I'm watching these drivers and becoming friends with these drivers. They're starting to realize who we are. They're buying our kits. They're getting involved. Luckily, my one employee, Chris, speaks fluent French. Well, he's from Quebec, so obviously he speaks fluent French.
Yeah.
Luckily, he's there because I can't talk to any of these guys, but they're all amazing drivers.
They're
They push
incredible.
the limits. They push the limits of their cars every single time. They're running 160, 170 km/h entry speed bank tracks. Like these guys, if they went to the US at this shootout that I was at, they would have just waxed everybody pretty much.
Mhm.
And going to Quebec, I was like, well, yeah, Quebec is like you compete in Ontario. It's like what are we racing at Cayuga? It's just like maybe
It's
100 kilometer
tough.
hour entry
It's
speed,
yeah.
and it's the small, like it sucks, like it's no good. So luckily Quebec has the level of driving and the level of tracks that if you run DMCC and you're in Quebec and you go to the US, you'll be fine. You'll be totally fine.
Mhm.
Take it from me, who's been in both, you guys would be totally fine. So luckily, Tommy Lemaire is going to Prospect. He doesn't have the same issues that I'm going to have with coming back to taking care of two kids while being on lockdown and running a business.
Mhm.
So he's young. He's an incredible driver. He's going there. We're sponsoring him. He's running all of our products. So it would, like, based on how COVID happens, like plays out in the next 2 months, I'll have a car ready. I'll have a car ready to go over the border and compete. Whether or not
You can
it's
go
going to
over the border.
happen is going to be the game changer, because basically Tommy and I would be going over in a sense together, pitting together, driving together, and it would be insane. Like he is one of the best drivers I've seen, both US and Canada. And then myself, I can adapt and I can change and whatever. Like Tommy's got so much seat time, like you can't even touch the guy because all he does is drive and drive and drive every single day. He runs a drift school, he runs a rally school, he teaches people how to drive
Yeah,
supercars. Like it's just what
drives
he
for a
does.
living. Yeah.
Exactly. So this guy, you can't touch him behind the wheel, which is awesome because he's going to clean up and it's going to be amazing. Like I'm excited for him, and I'm glad like he got the pro license from our event
Really?
because he won our event. He
Oh, right.
actually,
Yeah.
and we actually did a double elimination and he lost to Dave Briggs in the first round, which
Oh,
is
I didn't know
insane.
that.
So Tommy got his Pro 2 license by battling back from the losers bracket, having
Wow.
to win twice as many battles to win the full event. And then he had to beat Dave Briggs 2 times in the finals because Dave got there without losing. So Tommy is going to be an amazing driver when it comes to FD, because we're like, not only are we used to running, like we do not run 255s in DMCC, like we're 265, 285, like we're
Yeah.
significantly faster already than what Pro
What
2's
Pro 2
limits
was.
are.
Yeah.
And the tracks themselves are either comparable or faster. Like if you're talking about like St. Croix, like you're
Yeah.
going at 160 to 170 um, into a bank corner with no wall around the edge. I don't know if a wall is scarier or no wall is scarier, because if you go over into the grass, I flirted with it. There's a
It's
picture on my
not a good
Facebook
time.
where I'm in the dirt and still floored, and my front wheel is about 2.5 feet off the ground because the dip on the other side of this bank going at 160 is grass, and then it's trees. So you go into the grass, you could pretty much just die. So I don't know what's worse. I mean, if there was a wall there, I would have been in pretty big trouble as well. But if there's a wall there, it's kind of different
You can
dynamically.
replace those parts, then you can like center
No,
punching the
like
car.
mentally, it's different. There's like the way that you drive
Well, and
and
it's
how
easier to spot too. You're not looking for something way far
exactly.
ahead. Your reference point is right fucking there. So
Yeah.
yeah, you don't have to try and angle like forward and out. You can just glance over and be like, I'm at the wall. But
I'm just gonna read a couple of these
yeah,
questions.
man.
Um,
It was a good flood. I feel bad because it's like we could probably just do an entire show going through questions.
oh yeah, it's just we're talking about Tommy. People
That's
are
good.
know who he is.
I haven't seen him. Yeah, I haven't seen him drive. Is there much media out on him or?
He's got a pretty decent page on social media. It's TLO Drift School, and that's what his drift school is called.
Okay.
And yeah, he updates it pretty often. Like if you follow him, he's drifting every day at ICAR, which is an airport
Yeah.
in Quebec somewhere. I don't know where it is,
Hmm.
but I know it's like 4 hours away from me. So we're supposed to be going there, but I'm actually renting Shannonville next weekend for some ice drifting. We've already plowed it. We're posting a
Nice.
video. We're posting a video tomorrow, because it's my birthday next weekend, and we're renting the track and having like 10 or 15 guys come out, and we're gonna be ice drifting. We got studded snow tires. We're ready to go. So
I'm
that's just
quite,
gonna
yeah.
be, yeah. We're gonna run our three. Like I have a 350Z that's relatively stock, other than the FDF suspension bits that are on it. And yeah, we're just gonna have a party, um, drifting in the snow, which I've been just dying to do. The only
It's a
place
lot
where
of
we
fun.
can, the only place where we could go is Quebec, and that's 4 hours minimum to iCar to drive. And then it's one of those, like, I come back, yeah, you just like you throw kids in there. You can't be driving 4 hours one way to drift for 3 hours, then 4 hours back
No,
the the other way. It just doesn't work. Like it
doesn't
just
make
doesn't.
sense. Yeah.
Like so that's I'm constantly in an uphill battle when it comes to um getting stuff done. But as you like, there's really that, when if anyone complains or anyone has excuses, like you don't, unless there's some sort of innate disability that hinders you, like
Just,
excuses are excuses. You can just do it and get it done. Like there's so much time in a day that I do run out, but
I was gonna say there is, but there definitely isn't. But I know what you mean. You can get a lot done, but it goes quick.
yeah, like I will spend a lot of time and get basically just a control arm designed, and you've spent 12 hours on it. So you can definitely see where people can get discouraged if they don't think they have enough time to do something. But then you check your Call of Duty time played, and it says 15 days time played on Xbox. You're like,
Yeah.
did you really not have enough time? I think you did. If you got 15 days played online or something like that. It's pretty funny to see accumulatively how much time can be wasted, and your phones even give you a reminder now. You
Yeah,
have
go
two
go check.
hours and 50. You have 2 hours and 50 minutes of screen time, where your eyes were focused on the screen. Like it actually tells you if you were looking at it or not.
Yeah.
Like that's some serious data that you can say, wow, the amount of stuff that I could have done in the amount of time I was looking at my phone screen. But I mean, when it comes to me, like I use my phone for a lot of stuff, so I can't really go off of that.
It's tough. Like the distractions are always there. I live on my phone. My company is my phone. But
Exactly.
like then I'm also at this computer, which based on all the puke RGB behind me, is also very well equipped for video games. So like I constantly battle it where it's like it's right fucking there. I literally have to click twice, and I'm shooting people. So I know what
Hmm.
you mean, but like I really don't. In all honesty, I don't play that much. My friends make
Well,
fun
that
of me
depends.
constantly.
Well, that depends on if you like it. It wouldn't matter if you did or didn't, as long as you're getting what you need to get done.
Yeah,
Done. That's it. That's
but
it. Like
yeah,
you can do
it's
whatever you want. It's the
do,
people that are not doing anything, and then they're complaining about not having the time to do it.
yeah,
But then there's the but where you have 15 days worth of time played or 25 days worth of time played on Call of Duty. And that's where there might be a self-reflection problem that you need to deal with, because
yeah.
there's,
It's look at yourself in the mirror situation. Like look at what you're doing all day, and then wonder why you are where you are.
yeah, there's real world examples of the amount of success that one person can have, and they do it in the same time slot that is allotted to every single person on this planet. And we all have different challenges, but there's only so many excuses. So,
Yeah. Do you? I got okay. So this is kind of a thing I've been struggling with, and something I often asked other people that are successful. Right? I would very much consider you a successful person. Obviously, there is more success to come, but you have gotten to a point where, and this is where my question comes in. Do you have that imposter syndrome? Do you have that like not that I don't think it's real, but like it's not as big of a deal as I think I'm making it. Like when was the last time you stepped back and went, holy fuck, this is what I'm doing every day is making this. Like did you have that? Have you had that moment yet? I figured maybe like the new shop or dealing with Japan or something like that might be that like, what in the
I'm
fuck
a
is happening?
I'm a really interesting type of personality where like I don't get emotional about like anything.
Yeah, I
So
know.
it's kind of a flaw. It could be a blessing and a curse in the same thing. But it's like if I win a competition, I'll be happy about it. 100% I'm happy about it. Are you going to be able to tell? Maybe not. Like maybe not. So have I had like I don't know. I oftentimes get like weird reflections if I'm not usually alone for long periods of time. I'm always doing something, and
Yeah.
there's usually people there. Like especially if I'm at the shop, if I'm working there, I'm either focused on what I'm doing or somebody else is there. So there's very little time where I'm like home
Able to
alone.
reflect.
I'm not doing anything and I'm thinking. And you know what? Not that long ago, if that's like to simple answer your question, just like a couple days ago, basically, I would say like I'm literally scanning something and then I'm drawing something and then I'm selling something. And it's 100% if I want to make more money, I do this, I do this, I do this, and it's done. It's not like I have to, well, I do have to put in a lot more time, but like I can create,
Yeah.
you can create money and it's not like like I'm getting rich. Like this is like if I design an angle kit, it's going to cost me thousands, way
And it's a
more to
gigantic risk.
develop it,
Yeah.
way more to develop it than I will in the first 10 sales make back. So it's constantly, once you surpass 10 sales, you've just paid off the development time and the initial material cost. Because when we machine these parts, like all the misalignment spacers, we're machining these parts in hundreds or thousands, not in quantities of 20 or 40, where that's the amount that you may need to build 10 kits. We're making thousands. So like we're putting out thousands of dollars in the anticipation that we're going to sell
Yeah.
50 to 100 of these kits per year. And that's a huge risk. Like we're not making any money at all on a newly developed kit for a while. So the main realization I had was a couple days ago, and it's because a guy came in asking. Basically, he's seen our social media and whatever, and he had a problem or a part that he needed remanufactured and produced. We have the capability to make just about anything at this point. Anything that has to do with welding, designing, fabricating, we have the tools to do it. We build suspension components for race cars. This application was 100% not related to suspension or race cars. It was a plumbing application or something. And when he came in, he didn't have drawings. He didn't have anything to do with like he didn't give me anything
No
that could
technical
tell me,
specifications. Yeah.
yeah, he's not like these are the dimensions, this is what it has to be. It was just a part. And he's like, I think I can sell this. And I said, do you need drawings for this? And he's like, yes. And I said to him, our shop rate's $100 an hour. And it has to be like that seems like a lot. It has to be.
It
The
has to
overhead
be.
on the overhead on shops like this is insane. So like we're constantly running at a fixed rate of $250 per hour cost. Like if we're not making more than that, we're losing money. So that's just like very basically what it costs to run a shop with 10 people and pay all the employees
Just like thinking
and
about it,
everything
you're
that
like, oh my God. That's
it's insane.
crazy. That's
It's
crazy.
insane. So when he came in and he was like, well, can you do a drawing for me? And I was like, I'm looking at this part and I'm like, I could draw this up in 5 minutes. Like, to be honest, it was a pretty simple part. And then he starts asking all these questions. Like, I know nothing about what this part does, but I can tell him everything on how it should be made. And he's like wowed at the fact that I can tell him like this should be machined rather than welded. We want to reduce the human error because it has a pressure. It has up to 60 psi inside of this part, and he had like 8 welds on it. I'm like, if you don't have a licensed welder, this part isn't going to work. Like if you've got a guy that's not covering the pinholes on the end of his weld, it's going to
Yeah.
leak through this hole. You're going to have a huge headache on your hands when it comes to selling this to the public. And he's like, well, what should you do? And I'm like, well, we should CNC machine this part out of this material, and then we should do this and drill this. And I bet you'd cut your cost by this much. And he was like, he's like 45 years old, been in business for a while. He might have been older than that. And he was like, me and my partner never would have thought of that. So then he's now just going to pay me to make the drawings, create this part. And if he wants us to manufacture it, awesome. If he wants to take the drawings and go elsewhere, also awesome.
Yeah.
I get paid for my time. That's totally fine. And it's like the avenues that I could take now with what this business has given me in terms of the
The
power to
flexibility.
create
Yeah.
flexibility, sure. That's where it's like, this is awesome. Like, this is great. The stress and the loss of sleep and the amount of times that I've made mistakes and had to correct them and do all kinds of stuff is coming to being worth it. Like,
Yeah.
it's been a long journey though. Like, we're talking, they say it takes 5 years to even get to that point. We're 3 years incorporated. We're 5 years with the name.
Operational. Yeah.
Sure. And the first couple of years, like, again, I was just weekend stuff. Like, it wasn't anything crazy. So, like, incorporated, I would 100% give it another 2 years before we are comfortable and profitable and a well-oiled machine with every procedure and everything in place. Like, we're constantly working on, people need spare parts. Where are they going to buy them? These individual pieces. Well, we created exploded views of each kit. We put these spare parts on a spare parts web part of our website. And then you break that all down, and then they can buy things individually up to like 50 cents for a washer. And this stuff takes time. Like, if I'm
Yeah.
paying
Those
one of my
procedures are
guys
expensive to develop.
if I'm paying one of my guys to do what I just said for one kit, we're looking at 20 to 40 hours of labor. Like, this is
Yeah.
going to cost me thousands of dollars just to make a section of my website where they can buy a part that costs 50 cents and we make 10 cents off of it. Like, it's like, but
Yeah.
the convenience of it is
Yeah.
what we're doing it for. So, like, do we have enough profitability to invest 40 hours per kit just so that someone can buy spare parts? Not really, but we need to do it. So it's like we're doing it gradually. So, like, on the website right now, we've got like the base, like, we've got our 350Zs, we've got our our S chassis, and I think we've got the RX-7, the Corvette. Like, we've got some of the big hitter items that we look at our analytics, and we've sold 430 350 kits. We've sold like 190 S chassis kits. We've sold 75 Corvette kits, like, whatever.
Yeah.
Those are pretty accurate, actually. But, like,
Oddly specific.
From that, we're like, well, this is who's going to need spare parts first, like, to be
Yeah.
honest. So then we invest the time and we go from there. And the one guy that we had doing it, we basically took him off of assembling parts, put him on that. Then we got behind with assembling parts. Now he's back on assembling parts, and the spare part section has to take a break. So if someone needs a spare part for their RX-7 kit, or a kit that we didn't do yet, we get their email, we send them an invoice, it's good to go. Like, it's working, it's fine. Could we maintain a business like that where everybody has to email us and then we
No.
solve their problem?
Because now you have to hire a
Now,
staff
well,
member
no,
just to
like,
deal with that.
exactly. So
Yeah.
per capita per year, you'll end up spending the 40 hours or more on the emails, like, answering those.
That's the thing people forget about is the investment in time savings. Like, the amount of automation stuff I even set up with my own company, and realizing how much money it saved me, where it's like,
it's a over time. And then the analytics of stuff now is insane. Like, especially if you're using e-commerce sites where you can see over time what's happening. Everything has to be related to time. Everything is literally related to time. So
your analytics and mine are completely different. Yours, you're looking at the parts and stuff like that. I'm looking at the people, like the data that the internet collects on you and who you are.
No, I look at the people, the conversion rates of a customer. Like, why are we getting a 0.7 when we should be getting a 1%? Like, we look into that. We look at where they're coming from, how many clicks it took to get there. Like, we look at all that stuff as well, because one of the biggest things being in Canada is that at checkout, this is hilarious. Like, you'll probably get a crack out of this one. The checkout has to be in Canadian.
Yeah.
Why? That's just the way it is. If you don't have a US bank and a bank address and all this, you can't have USD currency at your checkout. There's no app that'll make it happen. I've been on a number of chats with them. Maybe you could help with it, maybe you couldn't, but
we might be able to talk later.
I've been in so many conversations on chats and Shopify tech support and whatever. They're
Is
like,
that's who you're through Shopify?
yeah.
Then
So
no, there's not. Sorry. Yeah, as far as I know,
well, as far as you know, is as far as I know, because they
exactly.
say that you can get it USD right up to the point of checkout, which,
Yeah.
dude, like today, 2 emails just today where they will. So the amount of people that email me and say, why did the price go from 1593 to 1920? That's exactly the email I got. You know what? 2 minutes before I got on this podcast with you, I actually responded to the email, and I believe their order came through immediately after I told them it didn't increase; it just switched currency. So I'm getting two. Let's say I'm getting 1 to 2 of these per day. How many are not emailing me and just leaving? Probably more than that.
you
Probably more
sh-
than that.
you should be able to
Do you
yeah,
know how many? Do you know how many
I think there's a way
warnings?
to solve this problem though.
Do you know how many warnings we put on our page that says in like 8 different ways that it's in Canadian, like big red banner. It's right beside the number, like it says CAD
Yeah.
at the checkout. Like we couldn't put it in your face anymore, and it's still missed. And this isn't saying anything against Americans because it's always Americans that are asking.
Yeah,
It's
look,
that
they
it's
want to
well
know
the
what's
world
up.
revolves well the world revolves around America, and they're used to buying from, like, let's say they're buying from Summit Racing. They buy from Summit Racing, they're going to, like, nothing's going to change currency wise. It's going to ship from Ohio and it's going to go to Arizona, and like
Yeah.
it's all just within
Yeah, there's
themselves.
some
Like,
tax regulations that change. There might be a state tax that's applied, but
sure,
that's
sure.
all
You go to
automatic now in
California,
shipping stuff. Yeah. Yeah, go to California,
100%.
get destroyed. Oh,
Yeah, yeah. Like you
yeah.
can't sell something that's a weird metal because it's going to cause cancer or something. I don't know. But the currency thing has it's. I was so psyched when I realized. Oh yeah, like a comment from Alex.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Just said,
that's a huge benefit to you for sure on that end of things where people are like, "Oh, it's actually like cheaper."
well, it isn't, because I feel like you're grabbing the U.S. customer, and they see the price. Like the biggest comparison is what all these companies tried to match with our regular Mantis kit for a 350Z. The price point was set, which this was really interesting when Trump got in and the tariffs increased. When I saw my competitors' prices go up, this was actually pretty funny when I actually watched it happen, like live, like next day.
The moment of, yeah.
It was funny. It was, oh, I'm not going to say it was funny, but I think it was funny because we build our own stuff. So like this had minimal effects on the price of that we're going to sell our kits at. But I saw what we were competitively pricing our kits at to match $850 US in Canadian. It was like 1100 or something. And then all my competitors went to 950 US, like overnight.
Yeah.
Very There's a strong correlation between the tariffs and the price
The
increase.
pricing, yeah.
So then you can just automatically see what's going on. You're like, overseas, they're getting nailed 20%, 15 to 20% increase in sale price. I see what's happening. We didn't have to change, like we changed it, uh not not directly, but we increased it like $50 because like our Heim joints, for example, the price of
Got
the
more
Heim joints
expensive.
increased
Yeah.
because that's coming from the US. So um stuff like that marginally increased for us, but it was like very small. Like our Heim joints are only 5 to 10% of the cost of the entire kit. So it was like, actually it's probably higher than that, but so it was marginally, rather these oh, we lost
We
Instagram
crushed
again.
another Instagram video. Holy shit. Oh, keep going though, but yeah,
Is that 2 hours? That's crazy.
that's already 2 hours. Yeah.
So we know that they're getting the majority of their kits made overseas. They're doing
Yeah.
very little, if anything, on this side of the water. And I forget the point of this was originally.
I'm not sure how we tangent off to this one. Oh,
We
there you go. I think I sent you the correct one. Did I?
You sent another.
Yeah, I think I sent another request. One sec.
I didn't get one.
Let's try that again. There you go. That's it. That's such a funny correlation though with the US checkout. Yeah.
So yeah, the US checkout, the biggest issue that we have with customers is that you're getting 1 to 2 emails per day, but then how many are actually just simply leaving the website? And probably, like, if I'm going to just rough it, I'm going to say double the amount that email us, double are just going to leave, because you know how hard it is to captivate an audience with a video, let alone keeping them there to watch the whole thing. And then it's the same with a website. You got them there.
Oh, dude, it's crazy.
Something weird happens, they just peace
Gone.
out. Like it's if it's the weirdest thing. Like it's very minute. It barely, like, all they had to do was just read just a little bit past the number, and it says those beautiful letters CAD, which means that you are going to save 25% off of that value. But the problem is that the US customers don't know that. They aren't familiar with currency changes, because everything revolves around America and they live in America, so they've never known different. Where we in Canada, we always look at the currency.
We have to, yeah. It's a constant problem.
We check out a summer racing. That baby better be in Canadian, or else I'm way off on what I'm about to
We're eating ramen this week. Oh man.
So yeah, it's we look at it all the time, but the Americans do not look at the currency. So when they see a price increase, they're like, something weird is happening. I'm peacing out. I'm going to the next website. I'm going to buy something else. This is stupid. What happened? Whatever. So I'm glad that they're emailing us. Like, I'm really happy, but then I'm seeing that this is a huge problem that's very consistent. How many are leaving the website? Probably double.
Would it not be a price decrease for them though? When it's where are they seeing the increase at checkout?
So the website the website shows in whatever USD currency you want. Right. Whatever currency you want. Yeah. So they oftentimes, and it selects based on your location. So they're going to go on and they're going to see it in USD. It's great. Yeah. Like a dual caliper bracket for a 350Z is showing at $185. Amazing price. When they go to checkout, it jumps up to $260.
But it's showing Canadian. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, we understand the problem, but they don't.
Would a currency exchange plugin or something like that to display what it would be in US somehow work? Like to add to the checkout page?
Yeah, I've plugged in a couple things, and currently there was nothing available. Like, this was probably a month ago. And they kept talking how all we want to do is display it, and they won't even be mad if it's slightly off. Like, they won't. Like,
would just switching the entire site to only be Canadian remove the geographical location? Or are you concerned then that the price being higher would kick people away? Okay. And that would be a really shitty.
So this is an excellent point made by Alex, which I've said it before. If they can't comprehend, but I mean, I can't say that because I don't want to speak ill of customers that have just failed to notice it. But like, if you didn't realize it, maybe you shouldn't be. Maybe I don't want you to install the parts. It's kind of
it's something. Funny. It's funny, but I know what you're saying.
That's all it is. It's just funny.
Funny.
It's funny that he said that because I've thought it before. Yeah. Now, I've made stupid mistakes. We've all made stupid mistakes. When you're on a website, like, you want it, like, you're really looking for a flawless experience, and if you aren't getting it, then you just leave. Like, I've had it where I went to go buy like, somebody was selling a drone for this one website, random website was selling a drone for cheaper than what I had seen one before. And I was like, oh, I went on it. A little weird thing happened at the checkout or something. And I was like, I was gone. I was out of there.
So
like,
I just hired somebody that is her entire job now. I've brought her on, and all she does is she's a user experience expert. So she goes through websites and literally just goes, here's a stumble here. Here's a problem with that. She's a specialist. She worked, oh shit, I don't know if I can say. She worked on a very famous campaign for a large telecom company. And I'm like, that's it. It's all I need to hear. Like, you're hired. I'll bring you on. And we're currently dealing with that with a website for an art gallery where they're driving a ton of traffic and staying forever, not converting. And they've thrown ads at it. They've thrown all this. And I brought her in, and it was like, a 2 hour review. She dug into it, looked into their analytics. She's like, oh, your problem right here. And it was a weird coding issue that was causing the checkout to
Yeah.
load too slowly. And
Hmm.
it wasn't significantly slow. It was just noticeably slower than the rest of the pages. And that was it. That's all it took. People are spooked. Gone.
Yeah, it's too bad. Now, luckily, we are in a business where like you're buying a pretty niche product, so like you
Yeah,
can't just go to
you've
the
made the
next.
decision.
You
You've
can't just
researched
go to
and made a
the
decision.
exactly. The reason why you're there is because you are aware.
Mm-hmm.
So
Ooh, I like
it's
that.
not like we're selling a drone where you could buy from 8,000 different websites.
Mm-hmm.
You're selling an angle kit, and there's literally three other options. If you
Yeah.
want to be comparative, there's three other options. So it's like I get that we like the people probably aren't just leaving and going to a different page, but I think some are for sure, and it's definitely a problem because we get a lot of emails about it. So,
Hmm.
um,
That's interesting.
anyways,
Yeah, I will look into that. I will do some digging on that for you and see if
Shopify.
I may not, but I have a few clients and more clients switching over to Shopify. So
Shopify
that'd
is
be.
great, but we've spent like I would show you what it's cost us,
Oh
and
yeah, no, I'm fully aware. I'm fully based on your numbers.
massive,
I'm fully aware of how much money that's costing you.
massive. Like I could have paid somebody full time all year long to
Yep.
operate a customly designed website and just have them sit there and just
WordPress.
work on it every day.
I mean, I'm just we'll talk later, but
Yeah.
that might be something I can help you with. But
But
yeah,
Shopify is so user
it's
friendly for
so
anyone that
nice.
like if I want to add a product, we're talking 2 minutes, it's up, it's done.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just
And
gonna
it's and
duplicate
it
this one.
and it's well integrated with like Google searches within a couple of days. It's already coming up on the pages. Like it's done.
Yeah,
It's well. Like it's like if you had to do that from a custom site instead, like the amount of changes that we're constantly making, it would be pretty tough. But then if I had a full time guy,
it doesn't
maybe it
matter.
wouldn't be. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter because we're
it's
paying
tough
for a
to
full
say.
time guy. But
Yeah,
I don't know that our audience is as interested in this as
I
you
know.
and I
I'm sorry,
both
guys.
are.
Yeah, I know. We're like right into the marketing, back into the marketing side again.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
what? How are you deciding what chassis to jump on? Like, is it just like people? You're just like, look, the demand is here. Like, what? How did you decide? You said the FDRX7. That seemed like a strange one to me. Kind of out of character for you guys.
I've been asked enough times, and then the car presented itself as an
Okay,
opportunity. So,
it just made
like,
sense at that point,
I have Ricky Craig's car. I don't know if
right?
you know who that is,
Yeah, I know Ricky,
but so
Mr. Asphalt.
he's got his FD at my shop. I mean, the chassis is there for getting a full cage. We're building the chassis from the ground up. We just put the winner's quick change in, modified the whole rear subframe. So, someone said business stuff is interesting. Okay.
We'll do. Maybe
Well,
we
that's
should just
good.
start a business podcast. Yeah.
You could, yeah, you could for
Yeah.
sure.
Another one. Fuck. Just put it on the list.
Um, so the FD is like if I develop the parts for Ricky, Ricky is willing to pay for my development time in making something that's special for him because
Mm,
he likes having unique and custom parts
yes.
for his stuff. And if I'm going to do that for him, that means that I can still give him a really good price where he gets an amazing billet machined knuckle and all this other stuff. And
Oh, that's gonna be badass.
I have dimensionally everything that I need to produce a kit after the fact. So if he's covering my upfront cost by making a fancy kit for him,
Why
why
not?
not? Like, why
Yeah.
not? I'm going to make rear control arms. The funny thing is when you make so many parts for these cars, like I'm talking about, like if you go down our rows of shelves and the amount of machine parts that I have made, we're in the 500 plus category of different pieces that you can't buy. Like you can't
Jesus.
buy them anywhere. So like if I have a threaded boss that's this long, I'll have another threaded boss that's this long. Totally different purpose that they serve. And then you do enough of these, and then you can pretty much build anything with the stuff that you have. So when we go to
Already there.
develop the control arms, like the rear multi-link for the FD, I'm going to my shelf. I took the measurements, scanned the parts. That's what you need to do to get your bushing widths and your lengths and everything else. But then from there, I could build the whole thing with just what I have on the shelf, like no
Yeah.
problem. Like I can take, I'm like, okay, so the traction arm on an FD is 11 and a half inches long. Guess what? I got a 12-inch threaded body that I use for my toe arm on my 350Z. Go to the lathe, quarter inch off either end, boom, done. There it is.
Perfect. Yeah.
If I wanted to sell the kit, I could easily spend 10 minutes because I have hundreds of the toe arms for the 350. I could spend 10 minutes and face quarter inch off each end, and then I have 10 sets of traction arms for an FD.
Yeah.
And the
Perfect.
amount of overlap that you get when you have 23 chassis built, developed, and made, you start to get into like when I designed the suspension for the rear of like an S550 Mustang, I'm like, so my spacers need to be 28 millimeters wide. They got to have an M14 hole or an M12 hole through it, and I'm going to use a standard 3/4 Heim joint. Go to my bin. I've got 70 different sizes of misalignment spacers. I pick up two, put them together. Boom. There it is. Like I don't
Perfect.
even need to buy any. I don't even need to get it. So I have the thing is I have tens of thousands of these spacers machined for the various kits that we have. So even if it was close, I could just face it because they're all stainless steel. Like I don't need to like replate them or coat them or anything.
Yeah.
I can just face it down to the right size and then boom, it's done.
Ready to
I could
go.
do that. So like we're at a point where developing times and everything is becoming pretty efficient and pretty easy. This is where I'm saying like the sky becomes the limit in terms of development because if I take dimensionally what I know for drifting, I can apply it to grip driving and different, like if specifically for doing Mustang stuff, like we have an angle kit for each year now and each chassis model, I can now take dimensionally what I know there. And Mustangs are huge in drag and they're huge
Yeah.
with a middle-aged guy that wants to take it to the track. So like
Yeah.
we're now pertaining to a audience that drifters don't even associate with, but we can sell to them just
Yeah.
as easily, if not more easily, because they are not used to having like when we make drift parts, like it's cheap, unfortunately. Like it's
You,
cheap. We're competing like when I'm making not angle kits, because I told you there's only four main companies that are making angle kits. We're all relatively priced the same. I'm talking about rear adjustable control arms,
yeah.
which are huge. Everybody needs them. Like we're competing against 15 to 20 different Chinese companies that are selling the same arm for $60 and we're
Yeah.
selling it for 280. Why? Well, the $60 one is definitely gonna fail. It's definitely gonna break. But
Mhm.
then there's a whole lot of middle in between companies that are making something that won't break. It just may not last very long and so on and so forth. So we sell stuff for really cheap in drifting. And we shouldn't be, but we are because that's what the market demands. So when we go and move from drifting, which we're slowly transitioning to going to racing and grip driving, because why wouldn't you? You have all the dimensions and
It's
everything that
all
you
there.
need.
Yeah, exactly.
So then you jump up to road racing and the Champ Car series and all these other um, like time-based types of racing. You're getting into a market where they don't really care about the price of the product. They just want to make sure that it works.
Mhm.
And they
And
also don't
consistently
ask,
works.
and they also don't ask questions. So this is like
Well,
as
because
a
they know they don't need, they don't, they're not, they don't, they know their alignment specs. There's no like,
as
what
a
should I set it to or
business, this
anything
is
else.
as a business, this is actually where you want to be and not catering to adjustable rear suspension for drifters. So if what drifting is doing for me in terms of a business, because I've told you, we make a decent amount of money, we spend a lot of money. Like
Mhm.
there's nobody getting super rich here, but there like the possibilities to grow the company to be a profitable company is there, and with a profitable company comes better everything for the customer. So it's not like
Yeah.
anybody's getting greedy, it's just going to get better for everybody. So when
Well,
you
it
look
just,
at when
I was gonna say, it just means that like you then get better tools and a bigger crew and faster delivery times, like as you progress, which that trickle down to the drifters is just more ability to create and do and work because
yes what
the drifting is more of the passion project, right? Than the The
Exactly.
grip stuff you're just not as involved with. Not that you have any issue with it. And sorry if I'm speaking on your behalf, but like, you know, I mean,
It's
for
accurate.
me, yeah, for even for what I'm doing, there are definitely things where I'm like, you know what, this is not what I really, really want to be doing. Looking at data and analytics of marketing is not necessarily what I love to do every day, but that
Right.
allows me to do all the fucking camera shit and everything else in the back, which I can make money off of for sure, but it's just way harder to. But I really like doing it. So
Hmm.
all of the website shit is it's great, but it's not what I want to be doing all day.
It's the same. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So if drifting for a business model is a stepping stone to greater things business wise, I'll always
Yeah.
love making drift parts, and I will continue to make drift parts. But if it's the stepping stone to go on to different avenues, again, this is we're talking about business again, but
Yeah, I know.
it's as a company, we're going to be catering to a lot more types of racing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
That's good though. That's good. It's wicked. Um, oh, I do have one question. Where does the Mantis come from? Where I've never asked you. I kind of understand the FDF, but where did Mantis? Like, why is it like the
so
Mantis arm?
yeah, so my first employee I ever had and myself were good friends at the time. He no longer works for me, but we were looking at what I was coming up with for the control arm. I'm like, basically, you got to make a structural arm that's good and tough. And then at the time of designing it, we got to lighten it up and then stress it and make sure that it's not going to fail. Lighten it up some more. You do these tests, you check
Yeah.
your loads and whatever. What I came up with ended up looking a lot like a mantis, praying mantis's arm,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. I know
this.
we both do. Yeah.
So it like the way that the arm bolted to the control arm bolted to the tension arm. This was for the 240. Like I made this like 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Just the way that it looked like that. And then we even had like Photoshop. People would Photoshop like the two arms like on a mantis with
Oh,
the
that's
head.
cool.
And then as a slogan, I have no relation. Like I don't love a praying mantis. Like it's just a bug. Like I don't have enough. I don't have anything to
It
do with
just
praying
worked. Yeah.
mantis. Like I don't, if I see one, I probably won't pick it up. Maybe I'll take a picture of it or something. I don't know, but it just kind of looked like it. So that's why it's. And then mantis as like just a word. Like it just as a word, it just sounds like you could label it, you can brand it, you could sell it. Like it's
Yeah, I
just.
agree. It has a feeling to it. The word has a feeling.
And it's really caught on as a trend where people are like, is it a mantis kit or did you get a mantis kit? Like people are saying it as if it's a
Yeah,
thing, as
yeah.
if it's a thing.
Yeah, you're
And
turning
it's
into
like,
Kleenex. Well, WiseFab, Wise that was it with WiseFab, right? That's what people asked,
sure.
and you were just now hearing less of that and more of Mantis, which is obviously a good thing. It's
Yeah.
yeah, you're taking that over.
So that's pretty cool that just like you said, like vice grips, like Kleenex, like these are not
Yeah.
what the name of the tool is. That's what the name of
No,
the
it's a
brand
cotton
is.
swab.
And they branded it well enough to call it. So anytime I want a vice grip, it may very well not be the brand vice grip. It probably
Yeah.
isn't, to be honest. It's
Yeah.
probably something else.
Stanley or something.
But everybody calls it vice grips
Yeah.
because it
That
makes
tool.
sense. But there's only one brand that's called vice grips. I don't
Mhm.
know why I keep looking at my screen when I'm looking at it as I'm talking to you, and then I'm not looking at the camera anymore.
That's all good.
But yeah, so it's the exact same as what you said. A Kleenex is like a tissue, but the company Kleenex just completely. Do you have a Kleenex? It's like,
Yeah.
well, no, I have a tissue.
What the fuck's
So
that?
same thing. So, anyways, Mantis kit's pretty sweet.
It does. It is
It's
sweet. It is a good name.
and then it caught on, and then people like want to like be affiliated with it. They want to say I have it. They want to put it on their car, and that's cool. Like that's really
Mhm.
cool to me. That literally came from the most odd or strange way of coming up with a name of just basing it off of something that looks like something else, and let's call it that and run with it. That's what happened. So it's a good question.
You're gonna have to go down to like. Are you gonna go to other bugs and shit later on? Be like the Beetle skid pad or something like that.
Yeah, like
Skid
sure,
pan.
we could. I mean,
Just dive
you,
right into it.
I mean, if you were making something like kayaks or something, you could. because I used to use these things called jitterbugs. It was like a small
Oh, right,
kayak.
right. Yeah. I know those. With like
I
open
don't know
top.
that.
I think I
Yeah,
like drunk fell out of one at one point in
a
time.
jitterbug, exactly. So I don't know that we can take the branding and name it with different bugs, but like I mean, you could
Yeah. Yeah.
like so basically, I'm calling the kits because now that we have the scanner and now that we have um, the ability to basically make adapters to complex shapes that have no square reference point whatsoever. I would normally measure these points based off of a single reference point. So I would have my knuckles on the table and I would have a single reference point, and it's a granite table where everything's super level. So you can measure from the table, and that
Mhm.
is a reference plane. So I can take my vernier or my scale and I can measure up to different points, jot those down. So I have all my dimensions I've needed from this plane.
Mhm.
And then I can make another plane or another reference point that I can draw from. And as long as I have 2 points, I know where intersections are, and then I can create the knuckle. But now I can just scan it, and then I can create the planes on all of these surfaces that are not square to each other. I
Mhm.
can create cones and tapers and cylinders and mark holes and do it within a couple minutes. And because of this, I can now make these mini Mantis kits that
Yeah.
are just adapters. So, like for example, if you were to install a mini Mantis kit on the 370Z, the only thing you need to buy is a $250 adapter that we've made because we scan the knuckle. You can bolt it on. I know it's going to fit because I scan it and I put it on in the computer. When I sell it, it's going to give you a marginal increase in angle. You're going to get 15% more steering angle.
Nice.
And for a lot of people, for $250 to learn how to drift, that's all they need. That's all
Yeah,
they
it's
want.
huge. That market's
So
arguably bigger than the actual Mantis kit market is.
so we're making these kits now because of our new ability to develop bolt-on adapters. And this is opening up a new window, but we call it a mini Mantis kit. Like we could have named it the Ant kit or something if you wanted to.
I mean, you got the,
Um,
yeah. Well, you're sticking with
but
the
we're calling
MM.
it, yeah, we're calling it the mini Mantis. I think it has a good ring to it. So
Mega Mantis.
yeah, and then the Mega. That's
Yeah,
exactly right. So the
that
Mega
works.
is the big unit, but we started with the Mega because we made a regular, like, anyways, I'm not going to go into all the different names of those things, but we're now making mini Mantises for like every chassis.
Nice.
And that's basically, I've been working on that quite a bit. So the Corvettes C5, C6, C7 are going to have mini kits. And then originally the full Corvette kit, in order to run it, you had to buy the upper, the knuckle, and the lower that we made. You couldn't like just change the knuckle and then keep the arms or run a different company's arms. But we're gonna start adapting our products to allow for a to allow for you to do that, to allow for you just to upgrade the lowers. And let's say
Mm,
you had modified knuckles, but you need better lower control arms. You can buy the lowers from us, and they will go on any
to that knuckle. Yeah.
aftermarket knuckle or modified knuckle. And this is kind of important because as long as like it's like how are you going to like we're at a very important stage in our business of development where we've got to figure out what we are and stick to that. So right now, are we a company that makes full angle kits? Yes. Are we a company that makes bolt-on adapters? We weren't, but we're starting to be.
Yeah.
And I like it.
It's kind of come full circle.
I think it's important that you don't just buy a full lock kit that has all the kinematics changed and improved to perform in the best mechanical way possible, but it may not handle well at all. So as a driver, you're going to learn the wrong way
Yeah.
just to start. And then from there, you're going to develop bad habits and so on and so forth. So if anything, it's like you should almost have a section of your website where it's like the number of years you've been driving between 1 and 3, between 3 and 5, and then
This is what we
five
recommend.
plus,
Yeah.
and then 5 plus. And then you have like blogs and things and information there. Like it's almost like the limits of it are limitless. It's just like you just gotta do it. And then this is where I run out of time. And
Mhm.
this is where I actually have that excuse of there isn't time to do stuff like that. Like if for you to do that, it's just what I said, that section of a website to have 1 to 3 and then 3 to 5, it's going to take you hours to even come up with how you're going to lay it out.
Introduce that
And
topic. Yeah. The customer
exactly,
flow of entering that portal and then being
hours.
like,
Like
yeah. Because you
I'm
also don't want to
working on
insult people either, right? That's the other thing. Like,
100%.
yeah, because you could easily piss some people. Like, oh, you fucking insult. Like, I'm not going to buy this shit. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But if you're drifting in your first year with a full blown angle kit, you're going to have developed bad habits based
I
on
agree.
that.
We overbuilding is such a is a problem that like I just everybody talks about it, but you just can't stress it enough. It's such a big problem. Oh, thanks, Google. Hang on. Problem solved. Yeah, overbuilding is such a financial burden, first of all, but like the amount of money, the amount of seat time you can get for the cost of a dog box is incredible.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's
Hopefully you
it's
don't blow up your
incredible.
transmissions, but yes.
But yeah, I think that like you can, I mean, it's just it's budgeting. Like drive within your means, right? There's so much burnout in guys who leave drifting because they spend beyond their means and burn themselves out completely in a financial sense, and then they're fucked. Drive within your means. If that means that you got to run a fucking BMW with a welded diff and a decent rad in it for 2 seasons, do it. And
You gotta,
slowly, yeah, you
you
you have
gotta,
to.
because like, for example, so I didn't overbuild my car when I first started drifting,
I
but
mean, you kind of overbuilt your car when you first started drifting, but
I did. What car did you think I first started drifting?
oh, that's a good question. Yeah, maybe I don't know what your first car was. I
No,
just assumed.
I said that my first car in the first time I drove that S14 at that competition was the first time I had driven my overbuilt S14, but it was
So
not overbuilt
I
for
guess the one
me.
before that was the carbureted one, correct?
I've
Was
never
there a
owned a
carb?
carbureted car.
Oh, okay. I thought you had a carbureted V8 on that one.
No.
Okay.
So it started out with a S13
Yeah.
9 years ago.
Okay. So way, way before my time. I apologize then.
First,
I made a
first
misassumption.
thing, well, I wasn't drifting. So first thing I did with it was I bought the shell for $400. Crazy to see an
Yeah.
S13 for $400. Pretty clean. Fixed all the rust. It's just coming out of high school, so it was just like a project. I put an RB25 in it when putting RB25s in cars was not a thing really. It wasn't popular. Very little information on it. Nobody made motor mount swap kits for it. Nothing. Like there was nothing.
Mhm.
So I bought a half cut of a Skyline and took it home. Bought it for $2,500. Paid $500 for the or $400 or whatever for the S13. And after I took the engine out and all the bits that I wanted, I sold the rest of the parts to a guy who crashed his Skyline for $1,600.
Hmm.
So I'm now $900 into my RB25 full transmission swap into my S13. And from there, I made my own motor mounts. I did everything that you need to do to put it in an S13. A couple people had done it. You could do a little bit of research and find pictures and whatnot, but there was nothing as far as like you buy this and then it'll go in
Yeah.
to your car. You couldn't do that. There was nothing
Just
like
didn't
that. So
exist yet.
I did that swap. Long story short, it worked. Took a bit of time, learned a lot of stuff. I drove it for 2 years daily, never drifted it.
Hmm.
Never had angle kit on it, had stock suspension, put some coilovers on it. That was it. I would drive it to car shows. I was currently going through college, so I didn't have any money at all. And that's what it was. So I started drifting officially like this year, 5 years ago. And what it would have started in was that S13 with an RB25, pushing around 280 to 300 horsepower, give or take. You want to stay at the wheels, probably 250. Like people over exaggerate what these engines actually had.
Yeah.
That's around what it was. If you up the boost 270 without a tune, you're not going to get much more than that. So
Yeah.
that's what I started with. Cable handbrake. And yeah, it worked okay. It was no angle kit again. This is kind of when I started. Actually, no, I would have had modified knuckles at that point for sure. So just modified knuckles, wheels were rubbing and stuff like when I was getting a lot of lock. So then I would have changed and made one of the arms curved so that it cleared, and that's when the progression started. Was slowly from there. But like drifting on a track, going to top drift days and stuff 5 years ago is when it like officially started. Before then, it was just kind of I was actually modifying stuff for people before I was really drifting myself, and that was because I had the engineering background and the understanding of what needed to happen to make it better. But as far as I was just too busy. So, anyways, that was my first chassis. I then LS swapped that black car, which is what you would have
That's what
remembered.
I thought. Yeah.
But
Okay.
I put a 5.3 in it, like truck engine with
Right.
a truck intake
Yeah.
and with a Z33 transmission with an adapter plate.
Okay.
And like this thing was not tuned at all. I flashed the ECU, I got into it, I took the VATs off of it, I bumped up the rev limiter, and I blew up like 3 of these engines. So that's where I was kind of starting. And this car wasn't overbuilt, like stock diff, stock like a Z33 transmission, and a 5.3 LS. I was mostly going for what can I do cheaply and reliably to have fun, and that
and
was it. That was the
and get
answer.
seat time. Yeah.
So then from there, I then probably 4 or 5 years ago, or whatever. I don't remember the timeline. It's been a while. So let's just say 5 years ago, my brother and I actually built an LQ9 6-liter iron block, higher compression, better heads, whatever. It made 405 wheel horsepower on a dyno. Now this car was getting a little more serious. I got a Jericho 4-speed dog box. Traded up all kinds of parts, trading work now, doing more fabrication stuff. This is when I would have started posting on Instagram, and people were like, wow, you're a really good welder and stuff like that. Now I have a 405 horsepower S13. I've got a 4-speed Jericho in it, and we're ready to party. Like this thing is now as reliable as it gets. The iron block, you just screams all day. I started winning basically every competition I was going in with this chassis. I don't know if you were there, even going against Riley Sexsmith and Dave
Yep.
Briggs at Cayuga when they were there. So like competitively, I still wasn't at their level of driving, but the car held up, and we ended up winning. So that was kind of like the TSN turning point, was that year when
The TSN.
so we got the engine. We have, like, I was okay at driving. We had the engine that had a decent amount of horsepower, and the chassis wasn't breaking, and it was reliable. And I was definitely running like early versions of the Mantis kit at that point, because I was getting crazy amounts of angle. That was probably 3 or 4 years ago. So we were probably on our version 2 or 3 or whatever on the S chassis stuff. And so I didn't overbuild my first car, that's for sure. But I did take a fairly fast progression through suspension upgrades and stuff, and that's
But you
because
had
I
that
just did it
knowledge
myself.
yeah, exactly. You had that knowledge base, so it's fairly easy.
Well, I would drive it, and I'd be like, "Well, this is dumb. Like this shouldn't behave this way. I could make it behave better." So then I would just do that. And I remember, like, I was an absolute nobody going to these drift events. Like I remember guys like Matt Acott and Dylan Sharp. Like these guys have been around for a little while in the local scene, drifting at Top Drift and Drift Ops and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And like I remember Matt like asking me about angle kits. Dylan was asking me about products. They were all very skeptical. They were like, "Who is this guy?"
I mean,
he's just another guy modifying stuff. Like he's gonna come and then he's gonna go, and that just wasn't the case. But they, like, everyone would see it over time, and then now if I'm at the track, like
it's mobbed.
It's a totally different. It's totally different. Like it's how it happened in a fairly fast course, and it's great. Like it's pretty sweet. Yeah, reflecting on it, it's pretty sweet.
The last time you and I saw each other, I think it was back in August, and it was like you and I were trying to have like a conversation. It was like, I don't know, every 30, 45 seconds, it was just somebody coming, "Hey man, yeah." Like it's that does have to be a good feeling to go from that relative nobody with an idea to like the dude at the track that everybody's trying to chat to and
Well,
get tips from and shit.
I remember being super intimidated by the drivers that had cars that were semi to full built and
Mm,
thinking like I couldn't even talk to them. Like they're so hardcore. Wow, they got an enclosed trailer. Like I came
dude,
here on a dolly.
I,
And it's like I'm the guy that people are intimidated of, but they shouldn't. Like I'm just
yeah,
saying you shouldn't be. Especially in drifting. Like it's totally different than what typical motorsports behavior is. Like if you're looking at a high level driver like Frederick Oswald, for example, at SEMA, easiest guy to talk to on the
super
planet.
super great guy. Yeah, just
Like
and he'll hang out and shoot the shit with you like he's your next door neighbor.
so when you're thinking like of that way, I know everyone is because that's exactly how I thought. Now the sport is further developed than it was, but
Mhm.
like I wasn't watching FD. I didn't know these drivers, so like that's the other reason why. But um, yeah, it's a
I
cool
was
dynamic.
Yeah, I was super nervous, like even before I met Riley. Like it was like I was like, oh, so gonna go talk to Riley Sexsmith. Like, hope he likes me. I
Big
don't make
deal,
a fool
yeah.
of myself. And then it was like, yeah, what a year later, I'm fucking him and I are road tripping, across North America. But yeah,
Hmm.
there should be no intimidation there. No one should ever be afraid to ask questions or to say just to say hi or anything else. Like it's always appreciated. I don't. I have a modicum of the level of fame that you do, I guess, in a grand scheme of things. But even for me, the odd person comes like, "Hey, man, like, great podcast last week." I'm always still just like, "Oh, like somebody actually fucking listened." Like these, there are
Yeah,
people. Yeah, there are faces behind the orders and the questions and the emails and the
there
comments.
are,
Yeah,
there
there's
are,
real people
and
there.
that's the yeah the coolest thing that happened actually was this guy probably doesn't even realize how cool it was, but I went to I went to SEMA, and while I was there, I was met all kinds of guys. Like I was just said, Frederick Osbo, Ryan Turk, and I was talking with these guys for hours. Like I talked to Ryan
Great
Turk for a
guys.
couple hours.
Turk's fucking awesome. Awesome guy to shoot the shit with.
So in talking with guys like that, basically I was like, oh, I can talk to like anybody now. Like I talked to them as if it was nothing. Like I just saw him. He was sitting on his cell phone at one of the booths. I was like, hey man, what's up? Like I big fan. Introduced myself. He never heard of my business. Obviously, he heard about it there when I told him, and now I'm
Yeah.
sure he's seen it
Oh, I'm sure.
being an FD because I know that like Drift HQ guys and all them have
They
talked to
push
them.
the
And
brand big.
so being at SEMA, I met, we went to the Grid Life party, and that's where basically you see every YouTuber,
Yeah.
every name, everybody that is somebody was at the Grid Life party.
Yeah.
And when I was at the Grid Life party, a guy came up to me and was like, oh, I'm so excited to see you. Like, I can't believe I'm actually meeting you. And I'm like, what's going on here? This was Jimmy Oakes, if you know who that is. He's got a big YouTube channel,
Hmm.
friends with Adam LZ, um, likes to BMX, likes to build cars, likes to do a lot of cool stuff. He was excited to meet me. And I'm like, what's your name? And he was like, oh, I'm Jimmy Oakes. Like, I'm like, you are excited to meet me. That doesn't make any sense. But he's followed me for long enough to know that
That's
like
cool.
he saw the progression of my page mostly, and then all the stuff that we do and everything else, and he was like super pumped to meet me because we had like he liked to comment on my stuff, and I would always respond to him. Like
Yeah.
um, the funny thing with me is I'm usually unaware, like I'm very unaware of people's statuses because I feel like people's statuses aren't necessarily a representation of how um,
Down to
better
earth
of a
they are.
person they are. I don't think
Yeah.
they're any better. I think they're just doing something like if we're going to just compare how good somebody is at acting versus how good I would be at welding, for example, like
Hmm.
there's no difference in performance. They're just in an entertainment.
Yeah.
Um,
They're
that's just
just
their
there's
job.
more people
There's
seeing them. Yeah. That's it.
exactly. So are these people superhumans? Not even in the slightest. Are they in a like is their job description basically to be known by the most people possible in order to make money? Yes. And they're good at that. Are they
Hmm.
better at that than I am at what I'm good at? No, we're probably about the same. So
Hmm.
I don't think of anybody as like super special where other people like fanboy or fangirl over them. So like Jimmy would message me all the time, and like Chris, my one guy that works for me, he would be like, dude, like Jimmy Oaks has messaged you and you like replying like it's not even a big deal. I'm like, I didn't look at like how many followers he had.
Yeah,
So
and he doesn't.
you go and look, he's got, I don't know what it's at right now, 200,000 on Instagram or more or something.
Mm,
YouTube subscribers, I think he's over 500,000 or something like that. So yeah, big deal. Like this guy's a big deal. And then, like this happens all the time. Like the guy that runs Hoonigan um, has been talking to me recently over the last couple of weeks, and I'm responding to him like he's like, "Hey, do you think we could work together on a kit?" And I'm like yeah, like send me your portfolio to my email and I'll give it a look. And then Cam, my one welder, comes over. Dude, that guy runs Hoonigan. Like he runs the whole thing, and I'm like, "Oh, really? That's
and
pretty sweet."
it's like
So like
I just asked him for yeah, I just asked him for a
so I
fucking
so
yeah.
I feel a bit silly in terms of that, but it's like I don't yeah, I just don't like they're all like they're way cooler than me. So it's I should maybe look at their pages and stuff and realize who I'm talking to. But for the most part, I'm talking to so many people, I don't look at their profiles ever. I just
Yeah.
answer them. I give them the basic send your sponsorship proposal to this email address and be on your way. And sure enough, humbly, most of the time, these guys that are big, they they do it and they've
Well,
got the
they've.
portfolio and
I
they're
was gonna
ready to
say
go. Like,
they've got the document ready to go, and it's just
yeah.
like, hey, I
So
need you to send this to this,
that's what
right?
I'm looking for to be like, that's what I'm looking for anyways, to be to get rid of
Yeah,
the bullshitters, to get rid of basically anytime you ask somebody to email you, that gets rid of 70-80%
yeah,
of the people that aren't serious, like right
yeah.
off the bat. So emailing is like that 15% inconvenience that people don't want to do. So then they just don't do it, which is great because
Because
then I don't
it
want to deal
skims
with
the
them.
fat off the top. Yeah,
Because then that it's the perfect filter. So, anyways, of course, they've got it ready to go. So then yeah,
and I
the
bet you it looks fucking
progress.
stunning.
Well, I'd hope so. They have a very, very successful channel. So,
Yeah, I've seen a few of their videos.
and they've branched, like I don't even understand the network, but how it's branched with Donut Media and all the other channels that kind of just all revolve around. Like I don't even know if Hoonigan's the center, but like they all kind of related and they all kind of work with each other.
Yeah,
And Chair
it's
Slayer's in
always
there with his pages and stuff, and like it's all very
it's all who
connected.
you
And
know. It's such a small
yeah,
community. They have to
yeah,
be, and like people don't realize that like people move from company to company to company. Like sponsorship reps fucking are famous for like sales reps from like one company be like, oh hey, here's my new number because I'm going from this wheel company to that turbo company. But the year
hmm
before that, he was at this bearing company or something. Like it, it's such a connection based system for sure, and the media is no different. Um, a lot of the race service guys were like donut guys, and before that, Network A guys. Like if you remember Network A,
yep, yep,
yeah, it's a movement of people, and some get left behind and new ones join, but like there's a core progression from Network A all the way to race service now.
yeah. So it's
Uh,
awesome that going to SEMA and having
yeah,
like
oh, it's huge.
our following isn't anything spectacular. Like we have a good following on Facebook, we have a good following on Instagram. Our YouTube channel is, I don't know if you've been watching how the
Growing fast,
really fast,
really
like
fast.
really fast, which for a while I was like Drift HQ's channel grew really quickly and I was like, how'd you do it? And then they like basically there is no answer. You just got to keep
You just
pumping
do
the
it.
content.
Yeah.
Luckily we've gotten into a nice tutorial where you're getting an average of 3 to 4 thousand views within the first couple weeks.
Mm,
That's it's not great. It's not bad.
it's
It's really
good.
great.
It's good.
It's really good for a channel with as little subscribers we have. So,
Mm,
but then we have one video that we're averaging 2,000 views a day right now. It's
mm-hmm.
the how to build a roll cage video. Luckily, this video is an hour and 12 minutes long. So there's like
The view duration is insane.
20, yeah, there's like 20 ads that are going to play. Like we just became monetized like last week.
Holy shit.
Actually, no, on Monday. And we've made $135
Crazy.
just on this roll cage video.
Man, just in all honesty, just if you can, just pump it back into the production value. Just keep upping that, and things are just gonna keep
The
rolling.
goal is not to make the goal is not to make money off of YouTube. That wasn't even the goal at
No,
all.
no.
Like we're going to become, the goal for our YouTube channel is to be relevant, up to date, and just like if you type in FDF in any search engine,
You need it
you
there.
will get multiple options. You're going to get video options, you're going to get websites, you're going to get pictures.
Mhm.
And yeah, like you're going to just be like, wow, there's so much, there's pages of stuff related to FDF. That's why we're doing the YouTube channel. If I can afford in 5 years to pay for the cost of my videographer, I'll be happy. But
Yeah.
I'm not even having that as one of the expectations of it. But I think it's realistic if we
Yeah,
continue
I agree.
on this pace.
I think the big one that people forget about, and this is one that like I sell a lot of and talk a lot about, is like videos that cut down on wasted time. So like I've been doing some how-to videos for a racetrack to like teach people how to properly drag race, like track etiquette, things like that. And people are like, oh, that's kind of silly. And it's like, no, because the amount of phone calls about stupid questions are reduced. So now a secretary can focus more on her job, or people showing up to drag racing that have to turn around because they didn't stage properly, they fucked something up, or they've wrecked the surface of the track or went through the water pit without drag slicks. Like,
Yeah, it's the same thing as getting a Q&A on your website,
yeah,
commonly or frequently asked questions.
frequently asked questions, but like in video format, it's just a better way to deliver a lot of that information. If you can make it entertaining or at least bearable to watch, you can.
Bearable to watch is key for sure.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
because like growing up and going through the schooling system, I would say the way that I learn is not the way that we're
that they're
taught. So
teaching.
like
Yeah.
how, and like I feel like my kids are identical to myself, which makes sense because they're
Mm.
mine. Um, the way that I would learn is like if I'm in any hands-on course, I'm getting 100%. It doesn't even matter if it is math, science, physics, gym, whatever. Like if
Mm.
I'm using my hands with it, like I'm gonna pass with flying colors. If I gotta read a book and then write an essay on points that why did so and so do this for what reason, I'm failing that
Yeah.
100%. Like I'm not doing that. So visually, hands on, and like I need real life examples. So like when I
Mm.
did my caster video, what can everybody reference, like like a fridge cart or like a luggage when you're pulling it in the through
Yeah.
the airport, like that's caster, it's following you because it has caster.
Mm.
That's why
Now,
it's following you.
push it. Yeah. Now push it and see what happens.
So these examples are like how I would be able to have learned it if I didn't know it. And that's
Mm.
what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to figure out to explain to people. Finding the real world example that isn't a car that they do use all the time, and then putting it into words and on a video visually with my display, and then delivering it. Now it's tough. Like I'll write down notes and I could, like you and I could talk about a certain characteristic of front suspension geometry, and I could articulate and explain and pause and think and do all that. That's fine. Like I can think about something and then say it. But when you're shooting a video, like it all just changes. It just goes out the
Mm.
window. You're like, wow, why did I just say the offset of a wheel backwards to
You
what I know that it actually is, or something like stupid like that,
have you
where
looked
it
at writing
just,
scripts? Like, have you thought about writing out a proper script and using like there are very cheap teleprompters. The hard part is learning how to present with a teleprompter without making it look like you're
yeah,
reading from a
no, yeah,
teleprompter. Okay.
there's no, oh yeah, I haven't looked into it, and I feel like so these
Immediately,
videos,
it's just not going to happen.
these videos luckily are not taking me very long, and I'm not struggling with it as much as I'm describing. I'm just saying
Yeah.
when I visualize what I'm thinking of in my head and how I understand it, it's what Elon Musk has talked about. When what we're doing, we're losing a translation, or we're losing a lot of information in translation. So I'm thinking of the concept.
Mhm.
Now I have to download the concept into our English language, and then I need to deliver it to you. You are going to then upload it in the way that you understand our language, which is different than how I understand it. And
Yeah.
there is going to be 20% loss in information. 10% is lost when I downloaded my thought into my language. I lose specifics. I didn't use the right pronouns. Like I miss something that is key to understanding it as well as I can imagine it.
Yeah.
And then when you upload it, you do the same thing. So it could be different than 10%, but that's essentially what's happening, especially when you're making a video. So it's tough. That's why Elon Musk wants to make the
Neuralink. I
Neuralink.
was just going to say, is this a Neuralink sales pitch? Is that what
Yeah.
I'm getting here?
Well, I can see where he's going like with
Yeah.
it, but it's when you're trying to deliver a very, very complex idea, which would happen in SpaceX and electric vehicles and hovering cars. You're gonna like these ideas can't be put into words because you're gonna miss something. Like it can be obviously, but with very long and very complex language, and only certain people will be able to understand it and interpret it. Whereas with his idea of a Neuralink is you can just like, here's my idea and I'm giving it to you,
Yeah.
which is
Boom. There it
insane,
is.
which is insane to
It's
think that,
scary as fuck. I
yeah,
love it, but it scares the shit out
it's
of me
ins-
because
I
it's
don't,
a
I
weird
don't,
place sometimes.
I don't see how that is, it's going to be very interesting future for
Well,
us. And
his
I think
his
we're living
his
in
thought
it.
is
I
it's
think
all just data, right? It's like we just need to figure out the conduit from data A to data B and cut out any of the translation in between.
yeah, like the amount of differences in the neurologic firings of your brain, whatever it's called. Like I
It's
don't know
infinite.
the
Yeah, it's
language. So when I think of a thought, and then when you think of a thought, it's hundreds of millions of different signals triggering in different parts of the brain. And then there's chemicals involved with like emotions, and then you play into the fact that the way that you think is based off of even the diet that you have. How can
right.
we how can we possibly say that a neural link is going to work when if you don't eat a banana, you're going to think about it differently? Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Like
it's super
I'm allergic
complicated.
to fruit, so like my relationship with an apple is very different than yours.
Sure.
Yeah,
So
I know
when
you're
you
getting.
when you get into that topic, like I'm it's not off topic because I'm currently trying to give this information to people,
Mhm.
and I felt that I was struggling a bit to give the idea as well as I wanted to deliver it. I'm delivering it well considering the comments and people's feedback. They're saying I'm doing it well. But it is still when I'm done filming, I'm like, damn, I wanted to do it like I didn't say it how I thought of it originally.
Mhm.
And it's because there's loss of translation and there's nothing you can do about it. And I know Elon struggles with it because if you've listened to his podcast, the guy doesn't speak very well.
No,
Like
I
he
the
doesn't.
long pauses always get me. Where like you can tell he is really just like bouncing this around. Like
He's
I have
trying
to
to
frame
put it
this.
into English and he just can't. And
Yeah.
I like the other problem is I don't think his vocabulary is that vast. Like it's obviously he has a lot of terminology that we have no idea what it is, but I don't think he has a vast vocabulary where he knows that word that he's trying to say.
Or the word just doesn't exist yet, or may not
Sure,
exist in English.
the thought, but the main point of the argument is that you can't put some thoughts into a language for you to upload it and understand it.
Mhm.
And I mean, Joe Rogan oftentimes struggles with grasping his very ideas because Elon just didn't say it well enough because he
Mhm.
can't. It's like when he says something and you're like, huh? And he's literally thinking to himself, yeah, like I thought it right, but I didn't say it right. So it's it's something that I struggle with on obviously a much smaller scale.
Yeah.
Just covering basics of suspension geometry, which I'm sure Elon Musk has a vast understanding of designing Teslas. Um, so I'm sure he's totally fine in that department. Although he did make the cars weigh like 5,500 pounds, which has a terrible effect on ball joints, tires, and they blow really, really quickly.
On Teslas,
So yeah,
it's a problem, huh?
yeah, like your tire wear is insane. like 4-year lifespan, not on a Tesla. You're talking 1 year lifespan. So
Really?
you're using the same
I know
tire.
someone who just bought one, like literally just bought one.
So this is coming from a mechanic's perspective of somebody that has replaced tires on Teslas, and they're like, we just did this a year ago and we're doing it again. And it's like the ball joints on a 5,500 pound car should be the size of a truck's ball joints, but they're not. So it's like things like that. I mean, every manufacturer has its flaws. That's the thing that's to say about it. But the other like deep topic that you could, like, there's a lot of deep stuff you could go into, but it's almost like nobody has figured anything out to 100% ever. Like mathematics or 99.99 continued
Yeah.
accurate, but nobody has it figured out 100%. And this is very relevant to drifting when you see the development in the way the chassis is built, the way the drivers drive, and the way that the manufacturers of the suspension components make the parts. Like we went from stiff coilovers and low ride heights to long travel, soft coilovers with larger sway bars. Like because we understand dynamically how to achieve more grip and how to go faster while in drift, and we're changing and changing and changing. I bet you we're only at like 80%. Like we're not even like we are having this understanding and we know what needs to happen, but like think about it. We need to reduce. So to talk about getting the most available grip out of a front tire, let's say that you needed the most available grip. Let's avoid the topic of drivers that like to scrub their front wheels and drift with slipping the front because that's their style. That's fine. Love it. It's totally fine. It's aggressive. They got to throw it. The harder you throw it, the better. It's totally fine. But let's say we're trying to achieve the most efficient and fastest way to drift possible.
Yeah.
We need to get the most grip out of the controlling wheel in the front in order to control the amount of traction we have in the rear so that we can steer the drift. Because if you don't have that grip up front, you're going to understeer, wash out, and it's not going to work. You're going to hit a limit where you can't drift faster than that anymore, where it's just a out of control slide or whatever. So throughout the steering axis travel range, you have a point where you're at -6 camber driving straight. And then you turn your wheel, the wheel flattens out to 0 camber. At this 30-degree mark, you have an excellent grip level. This is where you want to ride and be at, but then you continue to steer, and now you're falling to +4 camber dynamically, whatever it might be. Let's just say it's +4. You've just lost that traction again. So there's only one spot in the steering axis where you have the maximum amount of grip, and all the other spots are falling off of the graph. So the graph went up as you're steering the wheel, you've hit your maximum grip, and then it falls right back down again. We haven't figured it out. Is there a suspension system that dynamically changes everything to keep that wheel straight the entire way through? If it's FD legal, probably not. So we may never get there. But if you were to make the perfect suspension setup, we have not even come close to like what the possibility would be. When you look at how in the early 2000s, these cars had electronic rear steering and toe adjustments and stuff. And then you've got guys like Sasha, who is developing and constantly building that hybrid 350Z that he time attacks.
Psycho.
So you're looking at, he's pushing the limits of what's possible given the suspension that he has. So I've talked to him before where he wanted to have a linear actuator basically changing his toe setting in the rear based on his throttle input, based on his weight balance, and he's measuring the suspension's travel on every corner. Like he's collecting all the data, and he wants to adjust his toe based on what he's getting back through his Motec system. And in doing that, he's surpassing that where everybody works to get to the best handling suspension within the limits of a fixed linkage. And then he wants to go beyond there by dynamically changing.
That's crazy.
Another hour's gone.
Yeah, dude. You're crushing this. I do have to piss super bad. I'm down to keep going. You want to keep going?
Well, I mean, it's like almost 1 o'clock. I gotta go to bed. I gotta get
All
the
right.
kids up in the morning. But
We'll jump out just to finish it up. But I'll throw one more up quick, and then that way you can at least
we can
wrap
it.
up everybody. Jesus, we gotta do more of these. 100%. What's up, guys? Why do I keep seeing this? There we go. Story. No. Oh my god, I'm failing at this so bad. Live. I've never done this on Instagram for this long. I'm curious what's gonna happen.
I didn't get any kind of.
Oh, I'm just doing it now. Sorry. Should have a notification now.
Negative.
Yeah. Waiting for FDF is what it's saying. I don't know what you did. I could try one more. Nothing. I will try one more. Jesus.
I see your live feed.
All right. Send request. Waiting for FDF.
There it is.
All right. We had to do it again. Instagram people. All right. For anybody I'll give them a second, but they'll slowly file back in. Brent Stratton, though, he's been hanging out. He's trying to keep up with you. He's looking for your tips.
Hey, that guy's been around longer than I have.
Brent, I have talked about him. I don't know how many times. So hopefully he's still here. What's up, buddy? He is he is such a fucking consistent driver. That green car needs to go in a goddamn museum. The amount of laps that thing has fucking put down at Shannonville is unprecedented. There is no car that has put in more laps at Shannonville than that car. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, you're probably right. I think you're absolutely right.
I can't think of any.
Yeah.
I mean, it helps that he lives right there. So
we were just touching on the topic that the level that we have been able to achieve in developing anything, and I think this applies to like literally everything. We're not there yet. Like we haven't been there, and we are going to get there. When you think of the growth from when we originally started developing parts, like the most significant time I think we're all living in, everyone watching the video and that we're living in, when you go from 90s to 2021, and then you go from 60s to 90s, there you see a large advancement in vehicles, but not so much technology. From 90s to today, wow, has there ever been?
Is incredible.
We're living in a time where we went from 20% of understanding and developing and building to 80, 90%, and this goes across the board with automotive and every other aspect of technology. Basically, when you go from the only thing you've ever seen hover before was a full-blown helicopter to now every single person can fly a drone with their cell phone within a matter of years, and the technology is so cheap that for $30 you could have one with a camera.
Yeah,
like holy shit!
And
like
and
what's going on?
Camera as well.
Like
the
what's
Mavic
going
Pro
on?
2s? Yeah.
So we're on a crazy trajectory where we're headed, and it's pretty exciting. But to stay on topic with like the vehicles aspect of it, the suspension and what Sasha was doing, for example, is like surpassing what we're at our max, and he's trying to surpass it basically. And obviously Formula One is past it. Like they are, like I was watching a video on it was a car that didn't need a sway bar, but it had no roll in the body whatsoever because of the way that the linkages were set up. It had dampeners and countering dampeners that would basically, as the vehicle applied more load to it, it would fight back in the opposite direction with an equal amount of force.
Jesus.
Using different, like I'm telling you, this linkage would go up to a pivot point, and then it would go over across to the other side of the vehicle, grab another point, go through another pivot, and then back up again to the same side. And the way that it would work, rolling, did not need a sway bar, had no roll. The least amount of roll of any chassis. Is being developed by Mercedes. The other thing that they're doing is putting 4 ball joints on these cars rather than 2. So if you have an upper wishbone, or if you have a double wishbone suspension, upper control arm and a lower control arm, you've generally got a single lower control arm ball joint and an upper ball joint. This is great. You're going to have a scrub radius. It's really easy to define and really easy to measure and all this. But what European cars, the 350 did it just on the lower portion, but you have 2 ball joints on the top and 2 ball joints on the bottom with a space between, giving you a 0 rolling center as the arms are, as your wheel here is turning. You have 2 pivot points that are oscillating like this, and they're changing position. This creates a 0 scrub where the wheel is actually dynamically, like it's moving forward while it's turning, and then it comes back, and then it goes back out, comes this way, and then sucks back in again. So the wheel isn't swinging around on a single point.
Yeah.
The wheel is moving to turn forward and backwards while turning. This removes scrub radius effectively, and it handles really well. The only problem is you have 4 ball joints to change rather than 2. And
do you think drifting will head to that? Like, do you think that's going to be the next development? Is everybody swapping over to that style of system?
No, I don't think so. I'm just saying that if we were to, like, I don't think much is going to change with drifting. We're going to further develop our kits. We're going to better the kinematics, and we're going to continue to improve within a limit, because you got to use this factory suspension pickup points as well. That's probably the biggest holdup for going any further, because when we develop an angle kit, we're like, wow, I really wish the steering rack was like here instead, like the Corvette, for example. It's like in front of the engine's crank pulley, and you can't move it back, and you can't move it down, and you can't do anything with it. So like, it's there. That's just where it is. It'd be way better if it wasn't there, because it wouldn't over center, and we could get more angle and so on and so forth. So what I was saying was, if we could generate a computer animated perfect drift car with the understanding and principles that we're going off of right now, it could be like quite a bit better. In terms of getting a full range of travel with the most amount of grip throughout the travel range. There would be things that we would be wanting to change dynamically to create that. And I don't think it's going to change, because we're using production cars, and that's the requirement for
drifting.
Unlimited
spec.
And we got to think of cost too. Like, nobody wants to spend $1 million in developing the perfect drift car, because
not yet they don't.
Yeah, there's no point. So, but like you are saying, Formula One has been around for so long. They're at that point. Like, their budgets are 800 million a year.
It's insane.
So they're at that point where their data logging and their control of that vehicle, and they're looking for that 1 to 5% mechanical advantage that we're talking about in drifting. They're looking for that because they need that. That's how close those cars are mechanically, that they need that advantage to get over the competition. And if the team can't figure it out, like when you watch that amazing series,
the one on Netflix, Drive to Survive.
They go deep into the team's struggle with changing the setup of the car to make it better. Constantly they're changing it, and it's making it worse because they made one minute change, and then it changed it beyond its threshold of where it was advancing the performance, and then it goes back on the other side of the curve and falls back down again. And then hopefully they only changed one thing at a time so that they can reverse it and try something else. But oftentimes they're changing several things, and then they forget or don't know which one they fixed. And I'm talking about this as if I know. I don't, but like, that's what's happening. It's literally humans trying to figure out the best physics for going really, really fast. And it's impressive that we're able to get this far and as far as we are. And especially when you're looking at like the Mars landing. Was that yesterday?
Yeah, dude, that was cool. I made my kids like sit down and watch it, like just to understand what was
So,
happening.
so it's really it's like we're in a super significant time. I say it all the time. I wig out with people and they don't get it. Like they just are like, huh? What are you talking about? I'm like, no, like you don't understand how significant your current time in
Era, yeah. Time on
exactly
Earth
like
is.
yeah,
We're
it's
on the
extremely
precipice.
yeah, like I mean we're in the point where anybody can have an opinion and the majority of people shouldn't, but everyone gets one. So
That was too good. That was too good. Well, dude, I think like my bladder may actually explode. I managed to
yeah,
hold
I
it
mean
together.
you probably should have gotten up and just I
Just
could have
like
just
you
talked
could
to
have
the
just kept
people
going.
here.
I
Yeah.
was too fascinated. I had to listen. But it is like 1 o'clock in the morning. You and I both have children that'll wake us up incredibly early
Oh
tomorrow.
yeah, we're getting up at 7 o'clock, and the ATV's got to be running because I just
Oh
got a
man.
4-wheeler for the kids. So
Oh
they're
nice. I think we're going
yeah,
tobogganing tomorrow, so I will be woken up with like, okay, the sun's up.
yeah.
Let's go. Let's hit the road.
I'll probably do the same. I'll probably do the same, similar.
Yeah, cool,
But
man.
yeah,
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I think we definitely need to do at least three more of these, all 3 hours apiece, and we'll just cut out snippets and then just post that as a YouTube video, and you're good to go. Um, but yeah, I think even doing these, I think you really should start your own podcast with other people, either just in the suspension world or something along those lines, because or engineers to just talk about manufacturing, because I think we could keep going on this. You need to meet my buddy Andrew, who he works for Magna as a production
hmm
engineer, and you
hmm
guys would get along for sure. Well, it's his whole fucking life, right? So
yeah,
except for his
exactly.
are
Yeah.
latches. He makes actually I don't know if he's at a latch factory anymore, but latches are very interesting. A lot of crazy kinematics in that.
Oh,
Anyways,
100%. The most interesting thing, quick little five
yeah,
second
here we
thing
go.
is because I used to work at a company called Incel where we made blister packs, and I actually designed the production machine that formed and produced them and put glue on them. I built it, programmed it, designed it, made it, the whole bit. Um, the funniest thing was the older equipment that they had there had it was like the 70s and it was still working fine and made them tons of money. And the buttons that you had to push that would actually do something to the machine rather than PLCs and IOs and stuff like that,
Mm.
it was actually a linkage that went through this entire machine. When you push this button,
And would physically move something.
linkage physic not like a cable or anything. Like this was like plastic linkages that were like cast and forged in the 70s and
Oh
like
my god.
little ball joints. It was insane. And like you push this button, you hear like the most satisfying click and like it actually like changes something on the machine. You're like, this is so much cooler than a PLC and IO and programming. I was like, the guy that made this is so much smarter than he's not smarter than the guy that made the PLC and the IO system, but he's smarter than the guys that programmed them.
Yeah.
And I was like, this guy went somewhere that made this. Like they
You
said,
hope so.
you were in charge of making sure that this button does this. And this guy was like, he just went to town on it and made
I
the
just fucking
craziest
did it. Just
contraption.
did it. Yeah.
Yeah, this guy was sick. I don't know who he was,
We
but
should find him. Let's make that the goal is
but
to
to
find
make
this guy.
things work in the 70s took a smarter person collectively to do it versus now where you have just a few amount of smart people and then all we need to do is just program these PLCs to do stuff. So before we had a lot of smart people that you had to be smart in order to operate basic equipment. Whereas now we just have a few that design the equipment to be like really user friendly with a touch screen interface. So the dynamic of what we're seeing is interesting how you see the intelligence of people. It probably hit a peak and now as a anyways, we're done. That's it. That's it. That's too much.
All right, I got you. All right, dude.
Yeah,
I'm assuming everybody can find you FDF pretty much everywhere now, right?
yeah, for sure.
pretty much everywhere.
Sure.
So that's good, man. Well, thank
Smokey,
you again.
you missed it. 3.5 hours. You're coming in a bit late, buddy. We're just about to
How did you
head
just
out.
get in? Smokey drift. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry, dude.
yeah.
Well,
He was one of the first
all.
kits. He was one of the first guys to buy one of our kits in the US. If you're
Oh,
interested.
that's cool.
Yeah.
I'll definitely have everything up on the actual like Piston Head podcast. It'll be up on all the channels. I'll get the video link over and stuff like that too. So this will be immortalized. Don't worry, it's not going.
Sounds
anywhere.
good. Yeah.
Everybody on Instagram, thank you, dude. Have a good one. I will definitely be talking to you soon.
Sounds good. See you later, man.
Thanks, man.
Peace.
Okay, guys. Thank you again for listening to the Piston Head podcast. Thank you again to Josiah for coming on. Let us know what you think. We got off topic. We got into some business stuff. We got into a lot of different things on this one. So it's kind of different than maybe some of the other podcasts, but I feel like we hit on just so many different things. So thank you again, guys, for listening. Make sure to check out everything Piston Head. Once the tracks are back open, you can expect to see more content coming out there. But for right now, we're just doing what we can. Like I said, thanks guys for sticking around. Thank you once again to Josiah for coming on because it was great, and I really do think we're gonna do this again. So we will catch you guys next time. We'll 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 catch you guys next time.